Tonight is round 95 of VV Gaming's Losers Bracket podcast, and we have two amazing guests lined up for tonight. Of course, the CEO of MLG, Sundance DiGiovanni, will be joining us. On top of that, we have the founder of Shoryuken.com, as well as the EVO Tournament Series. We have Tom Cannon with us as well, might know him as Inkblot. He wrote a pretty interesting blog recently. We're going to be talking about that as well as some other amazing things about the fighting game community. We've got the normal co-hosts with us, Jerry Lord Jareth Pro Haska, the owner / president of VVV Gaming, Christian Asylum, the VP / mobile manager of VVV, and also Curt Carter, Check 6 manager. It's going to be a good night. I'm looking forward to everything. See how everyone's doing. Christian, how's things going tonight, my man?
You are talking so fast. Oh my goodness, man. But anyways, I'm doing great. Absolutely great. I love me some Metal Combat for the Mortal Man as a little opening for us. And,
yes.
I'm ready to talk NEC. I'm ready to talk fighting games. I'm ready to talk MLG. I am super excited for this episode. Curt, how you doing, man?
I can't complain, man. Can't complain. It's been an interesting week. Lots of I suppose partial drama, and some really interesting tournament results with NASL and with CS:GO being released. So I'll be talking about that later on in the show. Jerry, how about you, bud?
You know, I can't even begin to talk about how really thrilled I am tonight to both have Tom join us from EVO and have Sundance. We have a lot to cover tonight. A lot of people have questions. There's been a big discussion about a lot of different things. We're also going to have our own council manager here, Esoteric, Kevin Matz, with us. So I know that a lot of people have a lot of things. I've just talked to Sundance. He's ready to go, so he's going to start on time. So, Jason, why don't you introduce our first guest? Mm-hmm. You know, for it being the end season, as I think about this, it doesn't stop getting busy. News is happening all the time, and I think we're starting pretty well.
You know, I think that's definitely on point. So, first guest of the night, we've got Tom. Might know him as Inkblot. Let's just bring him right in and let him tell you a little bit about himself. So, Tom, welcome to the Losers Bracket for the first time ever. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. So glad you could join us tonight. So for those that are listening that don't know who you are, can you please tell us just a little bit about yourself, your history in the competitive gaming scene, and what you do outside of competitive gaming?
Sure. So let me start with my real life first, I guess, because that'll be quick. I'm a software architect with an IT company called VMware. If you know what it is, great, because we're a great company, but no one knows what it does. Google it. But otherwise, in my gaming life, I've been a Street Fighter player since the very beginning. I got hooked on the original Street Fighter 2 back in 1991. For a while, I was what you call, I guess, a pro player, although we didn't call them pros back then, throughout the 90s, flying all over the country to tournaments. In 1999, I founded Shoryuken.com. This was sort of right before the .com boom. And I founded it really because I had seen top-level players in places like Sunnyvale, California, just destroy people who thought they were good at the game. And I realized there were like all kinds of people who could benefit from what I had learned there. And so it was really a site dedicated to improving the player base of fighting games. At the same time, I started running grassroots tournaments in arcades, really small things. Our first tournament was 64 players. Really just to see who is the best. It's fun when you have people beating it out on an arcade machine over and over again, but a tournament has a different kind of hype to it. So we took that sort of, I guess, up a notch when those grassroots tournaments turned into EVO in 2002, where we started going to explicit venues, first college campuses, and then moving it to Vegas. And now I run EVO with the help of my brother Tony, Mr. Wizard, and a staff of about a dozen other guys who help with the, I guess, heavy lifting of putting on such a big event year after year.
Awesome, Tom. Well, I want to jump right into, I've wanted to meet you before, and we have to meet, what I would say, less than ideal circumstances, because your post, where esports leagues go wrong with fighters, got a lot of attention, upset a lot of people in the esports community. But I know it was in reaction to Sir Scoots' rant that you had heard on live on 3. So I know what it's like to have people misinterpret some of the things you say or mean, and I want to start this out by you talking a little bit, Tom, about what really prompted you at this point in time to write this article, and what are the main points that you feel people should take away, what you want to get at. So I want to give you that opportunity first to talk about what motivated you, why now, and what you want people to take away.
Oh, thanks. Sure. So what motivated me was really, it's been kind of building up, but Sir Scoots brought it to a head with his rant, and I give him, of course, he's allowed to speak his mind. And it was probably good that he did, because this is bringing a lot of, I think, sort of dirty laundry out in the open. And there's this belief that the fighting game players have our own little bubble, and we're happy to stay inside that bubble, and we just want everyone to leave us alone. That is not true. What I was trying to get across with the article is to say that we are interested in growth. We are interested in blowing this thing up as big as possible, but at the same time, we don't want to lose who we are. And we are, I think, pretty unique because of where we come from, which is arcades. I think every gaming culture, by the way, is unique. Halo is unique from StarCraft. It's unique from fighters. And we don't want to lose our own flavor. So the question is, how can we grow and still stay who we are? And from the past history of fighters getting involved with the WCGs and CGSs, pick your league, it's never really worked out. That's not to say it can't work out in the future, but it will never work out in the future as long as these leagues have the same attitude that they've had in the past, which is, we know eSports, we know how to do it, here's how we're going to do it, and you guys basically take what we give you. You don't see the kind of engagement with the fighting game community, and especially the Street Fighter community, that you see, for instance, with the Halo community and the StarCraft 2 community.
Well,
So
let's talk. I was just going to interrupt there because I don't want to go too far away from things that may have some questions on. Starting out, what do you think that most of the leagues, if you could sum it up in 1 or 2 points, what do you think is the thing that they don't understand about the fighting game community that they may have done wrong, and maybe concerns you with some of the modern leagues, whether that's IPL or MLG? What would you say are some of those problems?
I think the number one thing is to understand why. Well, yeah, 2 things. Why fighting games have blown up. First, why we were able to survive during what we call sort of the dark ages, where there were no fighting games, I should clarify, no Capcom fighting games for almost 8 years. How did we survive that? How did we grow throughout that? And then what motivates the players? And both of those are rooted in the reason why I keep doing this, which is to keep the arcade spirit alive. Right? Arcades were something that were really special, or it's kind of the ultimate expression, in my opinion, of what we all love about games, which is that everyone's equal. You can just sort of come down, put your quarter up on the machine. It doesn't matter if you're a new player or if you're the best player in the world. You sort of wait your turn and you can play, and it's best man wins. So the arcade spirit is what we really love and what is most important to us. And if you look at the structure of some of these leagues, really all of them, I think they come from a different point of view, which is perfectly valid and has worked out great for a lot of games, which is, we're going to take the best players, we're going to market them as pros, we're going to build a fan base and viewership around that. And those goals are not incompatible. Both can exist at the same time. But I think that the esports leagues go all in on their point of view and haven't paid enough attention to why fighting game players like their games in the first place.
Okay, so to be clear, because I think I want to absolutely make sure that we're clear, because like I said, I know a lot of people disagree. Understanding that there's a culture to fighting games, I get that part really clear. But I think a lot of people felt at the end of the day that maybe the middle ground wasn't clear in the article, meaning you were looking for anybody who would want to help with prize pool. But then there's this idea of identity, which can be pretty vague, right? I mean, identity means a lot of things, and culture is a pretty fluid thing. Culture doesn't, is a big word. I don't want to lose my culture, but I'm a big person about, well, what does that exactly mean? What does that look like? So if you could help somebody who may not be really familiar and listening in on what the fighting game culture is, and I get what you've said thus far, but let's say looking to the future, whether it's Major League Gaming or IPL, which are probably the two sort of big players, as WCG has sort of faded in a way. What for you would be like, you know what, I don't want to work with either one of these, either because of a past experience or B, I just don't trust that we'll maintain our culture?
Wow. That sounds like you're asking me to almost. Let me try to answer it this way. So one of the probably the most unique thing about what's going on in fighting games is that all of our tournaments, without exception, are open tournaments. So that means that when you have a 1,000-person tournament at EVO, you have the very best players in the world playing against good players, because everyone who goes is good. They all feel like they can play the game, but players who honestly don't have much chance to win the tournament, maybe no chance. If you are an IPL or an MLG, recognize that we like that. It's not a deficiency. It's not because we can't get qualifiers going. That's something we like. And figure out why we like it. And I could explain why, but it would take forever, and maybe I'll write something else.
No, I was going to say, Tom, you don't have to worry, because, MLG does the same thing in Halo and in StarCraft, and when they had Gears, anybody could come and purchase a ticket and play, well, until the max cap. Obviously, they couldn't take an infinite amount of people. They don't have that ability. But
but we have never had a cap, right? And we've gone to great lengths to not have a cap. So I understand that, is something like that, they're trying to do the right thing, but it's where do you draw the lines? And of course, everyone wants to do everything perfect for everyone, but of course, it's a question of when the rubber hits the road and you have to make a choice based on limited resources or limited time or whatever. What do you value more? And what I'm seeing from the leagues so far is they value their sports model, which is cater to the very top players, make sure that we can market them, get them paid, put them on show to build a fan base. And like I said, that has worked like gangbusters for SE2. And MLG has done a fantastic job. And maybe it would work for fighting games, but from my that's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because
so let me just think about how this looks from the other side. So MLG has 256 Halo teams that they could let register, as an example, right? Or 256 StarCraft players, or 128 Halo teams. Obviously, you said in the fighting game community you wouldn't want any cap at all. Would MLG, if they wanted to be involved, would they have to have no cap, or would you take a 256? Would you take a 128? What would your position be on that?
Well, we're kind of getting away from, I think, my main point, which is that this conversation hasn't happened, with not between you and me, but between MLG, not MLG specifically. I don't want to harp on MLG because they've done some good things with Tekken, which I'm sure we'll get to. But between, in general, the eSports scene and the fighting game scene, right? Like, we can have a conversation about, what if 5,000 players show up? That's not going to happen, obviously. So what's the right cap number, right? But I'm not seeing eSports leaders in their community, be it, I don't know, actual employees of the leagues or people who run the guys at ESFI, engaging with the fighting game community to say, why are you guys so disgruntled, quote unquote, right? What do you want, right? And that's part of why I wrote that. It's I think, a two-piece puzzle. First, the leagues mess up, but that's not news to you probably, or anyone. Anyone is going to mess up their first time out at something, right? But the question is, can you adapt? And really, the players for these leagues, I think they should look at the players as their customers. I hope they do. And if your customer is saying, I don't like you, I don't like your product, you either enter another market or you engage with the customer and say, well, what can I do to make you happy?
Okay. And I don't want to, I just want to get to, so let's talk about the kind of engagement that you would find helpful. Sort of, I'm completely, and we don't have to mention anybody. It doesn't have to be MLG, doesn't have to be IPL. But let's say I handed you a magic wand and I said, Tom, there is a league out there who wants to get involved in the fighting game community. Wave your wand and tell me what that league looks like. Act like the consultant and tell them this is what you need to do it right. What would your advice be to that league?
Okay, I would say, wow, that's a powerful wand. I would say that first and foremost, don't kill what's going on in the grassroots, because it's like a farm league, and it's very easy to say, we won't kill it, but you have to at least understand what are the events that people consistently go to year after year, who are the right partners in that space, because honestly, there's a Street Fighter tournament or a Tekken tournament or a Mortal Kombat tournament almost every single weekend of the year. So if you want to enter this space, avoiding everyone is probably impossible, unfortunately, right? So you need to work with the tournament organizers to figure something out, right? Maybe can be some consolidation of community events. Maybe you pick some events and do like an overlap where there's a collaboration between the league and the events, but figure something out. Talk to those people. Let's see, what else? Talk to the players, not just the top players. Talk to all the players through Shuriken.com. If you don't like Shuriken.com, go to Event Hubs. Go to iPlayWinner. Talk to guys like Spooky, guys who are sort of on the beat week in and week out on this stuff, and figure out what they like at the current events. Yeah.
Okay, so don't kill the grassroots. Now, when I hear that, I think about two things. So making sure you don't have that. How in other ways do you see a league killing the grassroots part?
If you're a league and your business model relies on players attending your event instead of a grassroots event, that's a very bad sign. I can't put it any more plainly than that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm going to cover one more thing, and I don't want to monopolize this because I know Christian and other people are going to have some questions. So, and Curt, of course. But I warn you now, Tom. Curt likes to talk, so put your listening ears on, right, Curt? Tell me about when you say talk to the players. I understand it's important for community engagement. There have been leagues where I've thrown stones at them until they came out and reached out to me so we could talk about things. And I totally get that. And I just want to make sure that is what you mean, that it's got to be something where people at the league in a position of power in some regard, it doesn't be the number one person, but somebody there coming out and asking the basic questions. What do you guys want to see in a fighting game tournament? Is that right?
Yeah, that's more or less it. I think it's a little bit deeper than that. Because it's not just what do you want to see in the tournament, but how. Because the thing that's unique about fighting games, not wholly unique, but there aren't many games that you can say this, that there's a thriving competitive scene before a league even gets involved, right? I mean, the typical pattern now is that a new game comes out, and the league picks it up kind of right away. That's what or pretty soon. That's what you've seen like with the MOBA games. With Dota 2, and immediately there's an eSports presence. With LoL, there was an eSports presence pretty quickly. So how do you take an eSports league and sort of bring it into what is already there so that you're not stepping on and trampling in the minds of the players what's already there? If you're coming in and even perceived as, we want to replace this, we want to run it, you guys have done great, now it's our turn, that's just going to fail. Whether that's the reality or not, if that's what the players think, you're going to fail.
Tom, I'm going to ask one final question before I hand it over to Curt, and this is going to be a tough question, and I really don't mean it flippantly, but I have to ask. At some level, and this is me as an outsider, I don't really have a stake in this fight, but as an entrepreneur, having built Evo and it being what I would consider to be work of passion, and then having Major League Gaming come along and disrupt what you've created, I can see to be a challenge for anyone. And I think that's completely human nature. Listening to Sir Scoots' rant, it's clear he's not very sentimental. I would say that he is not very sympathetic to maybe all that what you have done, but more so saying, look, those players are the talent. They're the ones who should be supported. And maybe in his mind, he feels that the way the grassroots movement has worked with the developers, has cut out the big leagues. And I know that's a central point of your critique, but what if somebody were to say, Tom, I really feel like you're just protecting your turf, and that makes it complicated to compromise? What would you feel about that kind of position?
Okay, that's a totally fair question. I figured it's inevitable too. First of all, it's just factually incorrect. I wish I had that level of control over what Capcom does. Capcom is making their own decisions when it comes to how they engage with esports versus the community tournaments. And I've never been in any kind of meeting with Capcom where we've said, what are we going to do about MLG, or what are we going to do about anything? They just don't talk to me at that level. I have no influence on them there. As far as whether or not I have influence, do I see MLG in these leagues as a threat to EVO? In the short term, not really. I mean, I think that we have a unique value proposition, which is that we're kind of like the QuakeCon for fighters. And we double down on that every year. With this past year, we had a lot of unique content, like bringing in panels from the fighting game developers. We had game betas, and we only run one event a year. If we were running our own league with lots of different events with a really big budget, maybe that would be a problem. But even if you have, I think the world is big enough to support EVO in a league. What I am worried about are the other tournaments that sort of sit below EVO. I don't mean it in a bad way, guys. Sorry. That are what I consider to be kind of the playoffs leading up into EVO every year, right? You have great events every year, like Final Round, like Midwest Championship, like what they're doing in California with SoCal and NorCal regionals. And if you come in and you have, and it's not done in the right way, and a league comes in and says, we're going to have 4, 5, 6 big events, there's danger that you start taking away from those guys really only way of supporting themselves, which is player numbers. So that's what I say. So am I protecting my turf? I guess my turf, when you think about my turf being like what I love, which is these awesome fighting game events that are super hype and player run and organized, yeah, sure, fine. I think that could be threatened if a league came in and did it the wrong way. If they do it the right way, then I think it could be done. And either way, EVO is going to be EVO, and that's a non-issue for me.
Okay. Curt, I know you've got some questions, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, great. So first off, Tom, I mean, I come from some of these smaller communities. I tend to support a lot of the, not in smaller communities, some of the grassroots communities. Like I told you before, on the pre-show, we at Check Six supported Tekken for a while I was at MLG, and also a bunch of the tournaments afterwards, or during Final Round, and also to the Royal Rumble event in Korea. So I mean, I fully support some of the grassroots movement, and I really understand where you're coming from in parts, despite having, I suppose, some obvious disagreements. One of the things I suppose is the biggest thing for me is what I would consider one of the biggest failures. And you bring this up. To me, one of the biggest failures with MLG, with CGS, with WCG, etc., has always been the fact that they could not get the most competitive game. For one reason or another, they could not get the most competitive game, which is, as of right now, if you would agree, I guess Street Fighter 4. So what do you think the reason is behind that? I mean, all leagues have been completely open with saying we wanted Street Fighter 4. Capcom wouldn't cooperate. I mean, and I think most leagues have been fairly open with that. I suppose the only one that hasn't is probably CGS. I think WCG did it for a while, but then of course lately they've been more pointed towards Capcom because I think Capcom's providing a certain amount of funds for that. Or not Capcom, I'm sorry, Namco. So anyway, I mean, my question is, what do you think the reason is behind that, and do you think there's any way to fix that?
Well, let's split this up into two parts: pre and post Street Fighter 4. Before Street Fighter 4, I don't have any evidence that these leagues were denied Capcom games. Maybe you know something I don't. But my impression is that they just didn't pick these games because they were pixel-based in a polygon world. They looked kind of bad, and maybe they weren't the most presentable games for TV or a stream, which is, I guess maybe I didn't get that across in my editorial, but that's sort of the tragic thing, is that you had these games that had every characteristic of what you see now with Street Fighter 4. The games were awesome. The players were just as good. Competition just as fierce. The hype factor was there. The only thing they lacked was the presentation factor. And none of these leagues picked any of them up. Instead, they picked up games that had literally 1% of the following, competitive following, that were just poor games. Not all of them. Tekken's are great. But DOA is a poor competitive game. And WCG went with it year after year. So that's all on those leagues. In the post-Street Fighter 4 era, you're right. I think it's pretty clear that Capcom is blocking the leagues for whatever reason. Let's see. I forgot your question. You're asking me like.
Don't feel bad. Curt has that effect because you gotta
tend
teach Curt to ask one question at a time. Curt.
It's that southern drawl.
Yeah, that's what did it. I'm excited. Leave me alone. But anyway, no. I mean, my question was more like I said. Why do you think that is? Why do you think any insight? Because Evo has been able to get Capcom support, for multiple years now. Do you have any insight behind that? And also, is there a way to fix it?
Okay. I don't have any real insight. I just know what I've read online, which is something about they'd rather back the community efforts over the leagues. And I can kind of see why. Just because this is free advertising for them, or darn near free. It's been free for 10 years. Thankfully, Capcom has started supporting the tournament scene more recently with things like flighted betas for the games and stuff like that. But why would they mess with that? Now the question is, could a league give them additional benefits to the community? And I guess no one's made the case for them so far. And now, can you get over it? Probably, maybe. I don't know. The real answer is I don't know. But I know that you're probably not going to convince them without community support. If there's one thing that we know, it's that Capcom of late has really listened to the fans. Capcom of even 5 years ago did not listen to the fans. We hit up Capcom for support year after year after year from like 1995 probably until like almost 2000, maybe a little longer. And the most we got out of them was like a bag of keychains. But something changed at Capcom. Either they got new management or whatever. And recently they've really been listening to the fans. And you can see it in what their online presence and the fight clubs they do. So if the fans really, really want a league to be involved, they will have some sway over Capcom.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, and I would probably partially agree. I mean, there's got to be some reason that Capcom keeps supporting Evo, and the fact that Evo is, was a grassroots founded event, I would completely understand that. Here's probably another question, sort of based off the same thing. My thing is I'm wondering, can the community, and by the community I mean, you guys, can you guys get over the fact, and that sounds awful, but I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way, but can you get over the fact that Street Fighter 4 might not be able to, or any Street Fighter game for that matter, whether it be Street Fighter Cross Tekken or whatever, be able to be the competitive game on a pro circuit, something like MLG or something like IPL, because of the way that Capcom won't interact with them. What I mean by that is, so, I mean, can you get over that fact that it might not be able to be that game?
What do you mean, like emotionally?
No, like what I mean is, would the community support it? I mean, the
Oh.
community, I mean, like I said, I mean, to bring up the fact that MLG had Tekken last year, it wasn't the most supported thing by the community because of the fact that people said, well, it's not Street Fighter 4. So I mean,
okay. So a little bit about the fighting game community. We sort of banded together because we all have shared passion for the games and sort of shared values in terms of what we like out of the games. But there isn't a whole lot of crossover between players. There's some, but mostly you have Street Fighter 4 players, and then some overlap with Marvel players, and then you got like the MK pocket, and you got the Namco pocket where most of them play Tekken, and some crossover into Soul Calibur, right? So to say that there are, whatever, N fighting game players and only a small fraction supported Tekken, it's not the way it works. I think the Tekken players got behind Tekken to the extent that they were interested in it. Unfortunately, as I said in the article, Tekken 6 was kind of on the decline. Its competitive scene had, I think, largely petered out when MLG picked it up, which is unfortunate. But I mean, I guess to the heart of your question, can like the fighting game scene get by if a league doesn't pick up Street Fighter 4? I think the answer is absolutely yes. We are self-sufficient. We have grown leaps and bounds thanks to additional support from the publishers and thanks to awesome games like Street Fighter 4. And you see games like Mortal Kombat coming up. Namco is having a refresh of their franchises. Tekken Tag 2 looks great. Soul Calibur 4 is interesting. That'll be good too. And I think we're in the same ballpark collectively as a league in every way that you would want, except for prize money for the players and overall support for getting the players around the country. That's the one place we're really behind, and it's something that I'm working to fix. It's tough, but I think the question for us as a community, first of all, Capcom's going to do what they're going to do, right? So if Street Fighter 4 is never, on a pro circuit, can we continue to grow? And can we bring those things that we can learn from the esports leagues, like, pay the players really well, have the top players able to devote all their time to the game? And can we do it on our terms, rather than having to have a league come in and give that to us?
Gotcha. Okay. All right, Jerry, I'm going to shoot it back to you for a little bit, bud. I know you got some questions asked.
Yeah, Tom, I appreciate you being candid with this. And I want to dive a little bit more into this because there are two things that I find challenging, and the two things that I think make it difficult. It's hard when, there's this sort of circular, and follow the circle here. You're a leader in the fighting game community, and when you write an article like you did, it affects what the community thinks. Now, you said before, I don't have any impact on Capcom. That's true, but you definitely do have an impact on the community. I can see that from the responses to what you wrote. And, there's definitely the final sort of salvo that you fired was, the idea that the leagues represent our way or the highway approach, and that'll ruin fighting games. It leaves the audience with the idea that leagues are bad. And from what I'm hearing from what you say now, you firmly believe that fighting games don't need leagues. So if fighting games don't need leagues, but you acknowledge that you're kind of like a league, and you acknowledge that it would be nice to have the Street Fighter 4 players actually be able to, do like a StarCraft player and be sponsored and do full-time, it seems though like it can only happen if the leagues are not, or the only way you're going to support it is really, it's a dead end with the leagues, right? You're not really giving them room to come in because you just said, we don't need them, we're working on it, and we can get there. So in the end, I feel like that the circularness of this is, yes, Tom as a one person may not have any influence on Capcom, but Tom telling the entire fighting game community, look, we've got Evo, we're working on it, we don't need the leagues, we'll lose our identity. Don't you think that you're influencing that community to tell Capcom, look, we don't need the leagues?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
but
okay, so
look at
then going back to the defending your turf thing, you can see where that clearly then becomes.
okay. Here's my nightmare scenario, and this is because I've heard you say this a lot on this podcast, and I agree. No one's doing this for the money, right? We're doing it for the passion because what's awesome about competitive gaming. There are easier ways to make money. So I'm doing this to keep the arcade spirit alive, and it's been a long journey to do that. The very fighting game community, a lot of us were saying that when the arcades go, Street Fighter's gone, right? We found a way to bring it to console, okay? And we found a way to grow it through years of non-developer support, right? So I want to keep what's awesome about arcades going, even though arcades are dead and gone. So the nightmare scenario for me is for Street Fighter to start to lose that arcade edge because we're absorbed into a league with their rules, and the player, and that this is happening, right? It's not conjecture, it's not paranoia. When you look at a fighting game stream, and I hate harping on DreamHack because I like them, and in a lot of ways, we're kind of aspiring to be like them. They came from the same kind of roots. But when you look at the DreamHack Street Fighter 4 stream, and there's awesome play going on, and it's like kind of golf clapping in the audience, that's just gut-wrenching for me, because that's not what fighting games are. And if that's what it becomes, even with awesome prizes for the players, and with, whatever, 50 pros who are living off the game, to me, that's not what I want. And that would be a shame, because we would have lost something that is pretty special to me. So, and it comes down to, I hope people don't walk away with the impression that I think leagues are bad. Rather, I would say that so far the leagues have been behaving pretty poorly when it comes to fighting games. They're not engaging the players, but things are getting better. IPL hired Jedi Rob, tournament organizer. So they clearly understand that they're lacking some information or expertise, and they've hired a role from within the community to fill that. That's a great sign. If you look at what MLG did with Tekken, they brought in commentators from the scene. They used double elimination format with kind of an open bracket. It was capped, but it was kind of open. Now, what's tragic about that to me is that they picked a great game at the wrong time. They picked it on the downslide, right before Namco was doing a refresh, and right before Mortal Kombat exploded a year later. So I think that there is potentially a world out there where leagues are brought sort of into the fold and everything works out, but not the way a lot of the leagues have been conducting their business, because they're just not listening to the players in the way that they exactly have listened to the Halo players when MLG was fine-tuning its Halo League in the beginning, and the way that they listened to StarCraft 2 players this year. Think about how much StarCraft 2 tournaments have changed just over the course of the year. All that was course correction based on feedback from the players and the communities on Reddit, Team Liquid, etc. You're not seeing that level of engagement yet from the leagues. And so that's why I'm really hesitant to sort of jump in and say, yes, leagues, please take over fighting games. I'm going to, wave the flag for you.
Tom, one thing though, but to be fair, right? And this is to be fair, you're asking them to engage, but you're also saying in the same breath, we don't need them. You're not giving them that road to true engagement. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I feel like I have to do that, right?
But the contradiction, okay, so, I'm really good. I'm really good at that. But now it becomes political, right? Because what you're doing is the ultimate question, I think the point of Sir Scoots' rant was that while you're doing this, while you're protecting the long-term vision of EVO, some of your top players are not making the income that they could, and you're not getting the cross-pollination to other games the way we get an MLG event. That was Sir Scoots' position. And in your position, you're very fearful of the fighting game culture changing. But, and this is just me coming in saying, Tom, we all are just people, and the fighting game community is a giant group of people who all eventually will, steer that ship. They all have a hand. I mean, I run VV Gaming, and I can promise you that I'm herding cats. They all have their own opinions and directions, and in many ways, they give me feedback about the way they want things to be, right? And they push and tug. So in this case, right, the ideal situation is for the leaders of the fighting game community to sit down with Rob at Devastation at IPL or Sundance or someone at MLG and say, what can we do together to both preserve an Evo, maybe preserve a Devastation, but at the same time get these games on a league full time and start getting these sponsorship dollars attached to key players so we can watch the community grow and get much broader exposure than just what Evo is. That doesn't seem odd to me in any way. You know what I'm saying?
It would. I understand what you're saying. I think where we disagree is the goodwill that these leagues would have towards that kind of story. Right? I mean, I'm not there. I see the door opening a tiny crack for, okay, let's work with the community, but it's only been within the last year, and the backdrop of this is a history of just not getting it.
So the truth is, Tom, just to be clear, you don't trust them, is what it is.
No, I don't. Not yet. No. I mean,
if somebody said, okay, what do the leagues have to do to gain your trust? What would that look like?
Well, that's part of the reason why I posted that editorial. Let's talk about these issues. Let's see what your point of view is. Where are we misunderstanding each other versus where do we have issues to work on?
Well, what would, say, MLG have to do if they wanted to get the support of Evo to get Street Fighter 4 on the pro circuit?
We would have to work out some kind of way for a league to exist and the not Evo, because you keep going back to that, but it's not about Evo, just about Evo. It's about Evo and the 10 other events around it, and then the 100 other events below them. It's a pyramid, right? So how can we work all that together so that all these things are reinforcing each other instead of competing with each other? You keep going back to MLG, so I'm going to have to call out Sundance. On your show, he said that one of the reasons why they canceled Smash was because Smash players chose to go to community events instead of the pro circuit events. And that is an enormous red flag to me. MLG scheduled one of their events not only on top of Evo, but on top of Comic-Con and on top of PAX East. Now, do I think they're evil? No, I don't think they're evil. I think they're doing the best they can, but I think in some areas they're just not paying attention, right? It's not in their best interest to do this stuff, but they keep doing it. So,
to be fair, they dropped Brawl for more than just that. I mean, there was cheating and prize fixing and
absolutely.
Brawl. That was clearly the death nail. I mean, Call of Duty, as an example, has not had a high turnout and had been disappointing in many ways. And Major League Gaming, in conjunction with Sony, supported that the entire year. So to be fair, right? I mean,
no, that is completely fair. But do you view the fighting game community as, like I said, sort of, because there's an existing tournament scene out there. Think of us like a league, a distributed league that nobody runs. It's kind of whatever.
Okay, Tom, this is my problem only with this, but I really get that. Just like you get that there were at one time in America all these mom and pop grocery stores, and then things like Walmart came along, and it really ruined that feel. And now we've lost a mom and pop grocery store, but Americans voted. They decided that they would rather have cheaper groceries than mom and pop, and that's what the majority wanted, and that's where we live today. Now, you could have been there fighting for the mom and pop grocery store, and I totally get that. But it's not up to you or me or Sundance or anybody. It's up to that Street Fighter community to have the choice, just like the American people had. So what I'm hearing here, and what I guess concerns me, is that if given that opportunity to make that choice, if they were given that opportunity to make that choice, and the top Street Fighter 4 and other fighting game players said, you know what, this is really good for us, right? There could be a synergy there that's positive for him. Now, along the way, Tom, I am not arguing that lesser tournaments, or those that are maybe lower on the pyramid, as you put it, are not going to be jeopardized, right? But I mean, that is in a way progress, and I don't want to get sort of an economical debate or anything, but I mean, you do see that tension that then gets created by the position that you're putting that in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, in a certain way, it's kind of zero sum, right? There are only so many days in the calendar, and whatnot.
And one more thing I want to say about Brawl. Don't forget that after they dropped Brawl, they still funded 6 grassroots efforts that I know about. So it's hard for me sometimes to paint them as the big evil empire when I see them doing these things.
I'm not trying to do that. I give them all the credit in the world for what they've done with StarCraft 2. I think they made lots of smart decisions.
But I'm talking about Brawl. I mean, specifically in Brawl, which they dropped, they paid for 6.
Okay, same thing. Look, they supported Brawl when no one else did in the beginning, right? But I'm not seeing the same kind of engagement. Okay, with the Street Fighter players specifically, because they have started to engage with Tekken, that they've done with the Brawl community and the Halo community and the StarCraft 2 community. Where is how can we have this conversation, right? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I didn't want to put you completely on the spot, Tom, but I just wanted to highlight that tension that was there in the discussion that I thought, definitely.
Here's my thing, Tom. When I first read the article, I was completely against almost all of it. When I first started reading it, I thought you had a good point, and then to me the point slowly deteriorated. But I understand your point a lot better now. And the reason I understand it is because I've been there. I'm there now. I am in a point where it's hard for me sometimes to want to see esports grow because I feel like we're going to lose quite a lot of things as we do it. I feel like with StarCraft taking off and things like that, I feel like they're going to leave other FPS games in the dust. That worries me. And that they're going to take away some of the community aspect and some of the uniqueness of each community. That I completely agree with, and I understand your point there. My only concern is I just want to bring up 2 things. Number one would be that, in my opinion, from what I saw of Tekken, at least, you're right, Tekken is not the, choice game. It is not. It was on, sort of a last wheel there for the MLG season 2010. But in my opinion, they did that the correct way. They brought in some really amazing commentators in Rip and Repaul, and I forgot the other guy. I'm sorry. But they, and they did it. I think they did it really well. They didn't have them sitting in chairs and doing golf claps like DreamHack. There was a huge amount of hype. It was just like Evo, just on a smaller scale. I think they did an amazing job. My problem is I don't think, and I think they would do this exact same thing with Street Fighter, but I don't think they can get it. I just don't think they have been able to actually secure it with Capcom. So that's really my opinion there.
I see where you're coming from. Unfortunately, I'm the wrong guy to have on. I can't explain why Capcom's making that decision.
Yeah,
I understand.
I don't expect you to. I understand.
I understand Jerry's point where he says that I can influence that, and I think sure that's true. I'm not comfortable doing that right now by the way that I've seen things basically sort of not go the way that I would like them to go. I know that sounds selfish, but it's my point of view. And
it's also vague. I mean, just to be clear, what do you mean by that?
I would like to see a league not treat the fighting game community like small time. And that came out in Sir Scoots' rant. It's almost like you have what you have. It's nice. Now hand it over to a league so that they can take you to the big times, right? I don't think that's accurate.
To be fair, Scott is not the representative. I mean, Scott is not an ambassador that I would put into any heated situation and say, and I think Scott, no offense, or Scoots would agree with me, he's not the guy you go in there and say, hey, make peace between these two people. I would not take Sir Scoots' word, reflecting the entire esports community.
Right.
I mean, Slasher's a fighting fan. I know a ton of fighting. I mean, that's why we're having this conversation. Is so many esports fans want to include fighting games in, our experience at a Major League Gaming event or any of the events we go. And so I think that's part of the big challenge, is that there's a demand for it.
So how would that work? What would it look like? I mean,
Well, here's what I think, and I just wanted to bring up this question to you. I mean, would you possibly support, and by support I mean get, the community surrounded, with its support, which entail, according to the way we understand Capcom at least, would it entail also having Capcom support it, something like IPL. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what IPL does with StarCraft, but they do something a lot like what Evo does, which is directly support the community tournaments and actually have them as qualifiers. I'm not sure if they're even thinking about that or if they're even considering that for Street Fighter. I'm just saying that model better fits what you're looking for. It puts money into things like you said, the final round and ATL event, which is absolutely amazing. The SoCal events and the stuff like that. It puts money into them and go, here, you're now an IPL 4 qualifier. Partially. Of course, you have other names for it as well, but you're officially an IPL 4 qualifier. Would that be something that you could more support?
Yeah, I'm actually really familiar with IPL, and I've listened to a lot of David Ting talk online. And I think he's a really smart guy, and he has some interesting thoughts about sort of the community being almost like a farm league for the pro ranks, and he speaks to the value of having catering not just to the top players, but to the tiers of players that are aspiring to be good, and then semi-pro, and then pro. So that's an opportunity for sure. And I guess the thing that I want to get across the most is that I want to see this thing grow just as much as everybody else. I want to see the players get paid. But I don't see the sensitivity to what I find important coming from most of the leagues, with some pockets. And yes, it's improving. And like I said, what I care most about is keeping the arcade spirit alive. And what that means is it's about all the players. It's not just about the pros. It's about open brackets. It's about hype. It's about keeping the Street Fighter brand and the Tekken brand and the Mortal Kombat brand, because all these games are great. Promote them at the highest level. It's disappointing when I see these games presented almost like undercards. I don't think that does anybody any favors. Not the game that's the undercard, and not the game that is the premier game, because the fans of the premier game, StarCraft 2, get pissed off that they're not watching StarCraft 2, right? Yeah. So, I mean, and don't get me, I understand this is hard. It's not easy. It's a lot easier to say we're going to stay completely separate, or it's a lot easier to say that we're going to apply the same rules that we have for StarCraft to Street Fighter. But I think it's worth trying to do the hard thing. And it's worth putting pressure on the leagues, honestly, to try to make that happen. And I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone who's interested in working with what, not me, but we all in the fighting game community have built over a very long time, and to keep it growing and thriving, and to have these things reinforce each other. If we can do that, that's fantastic. But the behavior of the leagues so far has not even allowed us to have that conversation.
Yeah, through your first point, Tom, I would completely agree. It would be a shame to see something like the fighting game community stifled. I guess is the way to put it, as far as, the 16 players, and that's all you're going to see, and that's all we're going to, really showcase, like you unfortunately do see sometimes in StarCraft. So I would agree with that point completely. My last question to you, this is completely off topic, because I think we're done with the article now. I think we have to move on, because we are actually having Sundance on later on in the show. But this is completely off topic from the article, but I have to ask, because I ask it to every fighting game community person that comes on. Why does the community not so receptive to Tekken? Because I'm a Tekken fan. I am a Tekken fan, man. So, like, maybe you can tell me why does Tekken receive so much hate?
Hey,
Help
really?
me out. Help me explain.
No. I don't think it's hate. I don't think it's hate at all. I think it's just different strokes, right? I mean, okay, so first, quick primer. There's a key difference between Street Fighter and Tekken, and that is that it's the fireball. The fireball allows you to have full range games in Street Fighter. You can attack from all the way across the screen, which leads to fights like Ryu versus Zangief, where Zangief is trying to get in and Ryu's trying to keep him out. That doesn't exist really in Tekken. Tekken is all about things like frame advantage and close-in sort of, knee-to-knee fighting. Some people like the Street Fighter brand. Some people like both. Some people like the Tekken brand. If you don't like the Tekken brand to play, it's just not what you're into. Same way that some people aren't into any other kind of game.
No, I think that holds true also for Mortal Kombat, which I think sometimes gets a bad rap. Tom, I want to ask you a question. Could we ask you to come back on the Losers Bracket maybe early next year and continue to give the esports community your thoughts on the fighting gaming community, and also talk to us a little bit more about the titles? Because I would love to talk more about the categories of Mortal Kombat 9, Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, and as Curt mentioned, Tekken. So I'm going to give you that invite now, but expect Jason to come hit you up and bother you, because regardless, I'm a big fan of people talking, and that dialogue educates all of us. So I really want to thank you for coming on the Losers Bracket, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, it was fun. I'm happy to have conversations like these, even though we obviously disagree in some places. I think that, when we do talk, we can work it out, and I've learned a lot from this podcast. And if I can have just one last final word, if you're in the esports community and you disagree with a lot of what I say, please engage with the fighting game players, with me, with Shuriken.com, because if there is anything that the fighting game community is, it's agile. If there's a good idea, we will adopt it. We've already adopted some ideas from esports, and we can be convinced, right? So where we are now is not necessarily where we will be in the future. If we can work these details out, then hopefully we can all benefit.
All right, Tom. Thank you. There's a final word. Jason, I'm going to hand it to you to wrap it up as we move forward.
Yeah, most definitely. I actually have one final question, and this is actually a question of you giving us a question. So, Tom, first things first, thank you very much for taking some time out on this night and joining us. But since we are about to have Sundance on the show, if we were to ask him one question from you to Sundance later in the show, what would that be? What would you like us to ask him from you?
Oh my God, what a nice opportunity.
That's why I'm giving it to you.
I would ask him what is his vision for a combination of a pro circuit style of event versus the kind of small grassroots tournaments that have a very different feel. I mean, if you've watched any fighting game stream, you know that there's a very different feel. How can those two things, how can you have both under sort of one umbrella?
Well, let's see what we can find out later on. Tom, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. I think that this has been very insightful, and I'm really glad to hear that you guys are open to the idea of, listening in and feedback and things like that. And please, if anyone's listening right now and you do have some feedback for Tom, get at him. He's on Twitter, so you can follow him at ProTomCannon. That's all one word. And tweet him your feedback. That way he can learn about what you are thinking about, what you've heard this interview. So yet again, Tom, thank you so much for joining us tonight. All right, man?
Absolutely.
And we'll see you back here soon next year?
Sure.
Awesome.
Have a good holiday, all right?
Yeah, most definitely. Cool. All right.
That was good. Good. I do feel there was a lot of turf protection going on there. I got to be honest. It always, and it's understandable. It really is. The human... that really doesn't sound like me at all, does it? me understanding, being human. I don't.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. Probably because I'm in a good mood for our next guest. So why don't we? What do you think? Is it time for the?
You know what? We've had people clamoring in the chat for the last hour. I think it's about time. Shall we do it?
Time?
Shall we?
I think
Cue the Imperial March.
SWOTOR is still 10 days away. We've got some business to take care of first. Asylum.
Don't even remind me that we have to wait. So we're gonna reach out to Sundance and
all right, let's bring him
say
in.
howdy who.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys,
the man of the hour, Sundance DiGiovanni. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Busy. How was your? You have been busy. You had holiday, then you got sick, then you were traveling to Europe. You've been a man about town.
Yeah, it's been an interesting month and change.
I don't even know where to begin, Sundance. I am. Let's get right to it. I know we just had Tom on, and I know you were listening a little bit to that, but I don't know if we should start there. Do you want to start there, or can we start with the year in review?
Well, I mean, we can start. He was just on, so maybe we could talk to that a little bit because he might be listening, and then we can move on. I mean, it's totally up to you guys, though.
Yeah, go ahead, Sundance. I mean, obviously, his question to you was what your vision would be of something like that, and I'm going to be honest. We both agree to disagree, and I'm always respectful to our guests. But I saw, I get when what that feels like, but at the same time, I do think he did ask the right question. I think for the whole fighting gaming community that's listening to hear you, what is your vision about how it would work? I mean, I thought you've done a good job in Brawl, and you're capable, so I don't necessarily see why Street Fighter 4 would be any different. But obviously, you have a lot of experience and a lot of people demanding it. So with that being said, what is your vision for fighting games in Major League Gaming, and how does that in some ways protect the sanctity of the grassroots side of things?
Well, I mean, first, I think there's this notion around, like, the leagues get a bad rap in general, and I'm not going to say that some of them don't deserve it. But again, if you look at what we did with Smash, we funded several grassroots tournaments that were going on, and we're very respectful of the scene. We run smashboards.com. I mean, that's one of our properties that we picked up to make sure it didn't go away. When we did Smash, we did it because we loved it. And there was a period where it didn't work, and we had to pass on it for a couple of seasons, and then it came back. And unfortunately, the reason that it wound down wasn't because of, a lack of attendance, because we ended up with pretty decent attendance there. But it was that there was just open, and there was just behavior that was openly against the tenets of the league. So it was unfortunate. Then we ran Tekken, and we ran Tekken knowing that it was kind of on its last legs. But Namco came to us and said, look, we want to build something with you. We think there's a real opportunity here. And we said, you know what, we agree. We think there's a huge opportunity, and we want to kind of, invest in this and give it a shot. And now this also, you have to understand, was under the previous structure of the league when Halo was our universe and everything else was a redheaded stepchild. But that's different today.
I want to just cut in real quick, and I think this is important. I remember MLG under the previous leadership, and it's different now. And I think it's really important that we not let that go unnoticed. Just like the fighting game community, and Tom said, can be agile, I would say that Major League Gaming, with you back at the helm, from seats to soundproof booths, and I could bore the list, you've been agile as well. So I just don't want to let that point get missed that, I do think you've been listening to the community, but please continue your point about, this being sort of the new MLG.
Well, I appreciate that, Jerry. And I mean, the thing about it is that if you come to our events and there's 3 main stages with 3 seating areas with 3 competition floors, and there's, make no mistake, one of our goals with Sony as a partner was to find a way to broaden out and figure out if we could continue with the fighting games community. And we did, we've got an opportunity. We have a great partnership with Warner Brothers. We've still got a great partnership with Namco. In the Capcom stuff, we actually made a lot of progress there. I mean, there's still some political stuff, which I don't really want to get into, but it's no longer Japan. It's more now that there's just, there's kind of there's two different ways of thinking, and one is along the lines of what Tom was saying, and I understand that and I appreciate it. But the reality is if I were to come to you and say, look, I want my structure to be as supportive as possible, as embracing of what is there already, but to infuse both promotion and capital into the scene. So in other words, you tell me it needs to be double elimination, needs to be, or round robin, or you tell me you want to flip a coin. If that's what the community has come to view as authentic, fine. We'll work with that to a degree. I mean, even if but there's a certain point of view that we have where there's certain things that we do because for the sanctity of having the best competition in terms of mathematically determining who's the best that weekend, such as extended series in StarCraft 2, which are incredibly unpopular, but they're not going away. There's certain things that we will stick to. We'll give you 98% of the things you want most of the time, but there's going to be 2% to 5% that you might not get. And the reality is that my point of view is, and I've sat with tons of people within the fighting games community. And I'll tell you what, they're right. They don't need us. They can exist on their own, and that's fine. And I have no problem with it. Or they can work with anybody but us, or kind of be scared of the big quote unquote leagues. But the reality is that I don't know. I don't believe that anybody who knows me or has sat with me or talked to me or walked through my plans or how I approach things. And I've met with Gutex repeatedly and really tried to work things out with him. And we've got guys within the community who are working with us at Namco, at Warner Brothers, all these places. The fact of the matter is that there's some bad blood that I think can be traced back to one or two people on both sides that unfortunately hasn't been cleared. And, to be honest with you, I'm not saying it one way or the other, but there's a good chance that we could run fighting games next year and Capcom titles wouldn't be part of it, but you'd see titles from Namco and you'd see titles from Warner Brothers. I mean, there's the reality is that we'll do what we can, and we're not going to try and convince anybody that we need everything. But if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I've actually turned the page on it, and Scoot's rant couldn't have come at a worse time, in my opinion, because I'm planning next year and I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of positive energy, with some folks within the publishing side of the fighting games community, but I'm not, I don't want to lobby one way or the other. But I understand Tom's point of view.
And just to jump in there, and I want to get again for the audience, because I do want to clear this, and I agree with you. I want to turn the page on this as well. I mean, at some level, I tend to frame it like this, and you may agree or disagree with me, but I don't think Major League Gaming wants to have a partner, and I use the term partner loosely, but a community involved with Major League Gaming, especially at this stage, that's not enthusiastic and supportive of the broader vision. I think it would be to your detriment to have to fight to get a community in that is deeply divided. That's my opinion. I mean, you may disagree, but I think it is worth turning the page.
Yeah, and again, I think I have nothing but respect for Evo as an organization, history, what they've done, fantastic. We had a shared event in Vegas, and I don't 100% agree with some of the facts that are in that article related to that event, but there was a hope that at some point we could coexist. That evaporated. Then we tried to get it back, but the reality is that it's a very fertile community, and I think that they will be fine with or without us. Would love to support them. But I've had this conversation with you on several occasions, Jerry. There's only, I've been called a number of things within that world that, and look, the same things happened in every community that we've had. The Halo community is the worst in terms of being a critic of what we do, and I get that. But every other community views us as favoring them over everything else, or now maybe StarCraft, but the same can be said there. The reality is we're not perfect. I've been CEO of the business for just over a year, and you can look at this year-end recap as a testament to what I've tried to accomplish and what I have accomplished. The work's not done. I would love to work with somebody, I'd love to work with an Evo. Would love to. Would love to be able to support the grassroots, events. But, if he's saying that if there's 100 events going on, I have to have 4 large-scale events next year, and hopefully they won't overlap with others, but sometimes that planning process is a very difficult one.
Well, I was going to say, I think you've made it clear, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I think you've made it clear that your door is open and you're more than willing to talk to Evo about this, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Look, absolutely. I've said to other folks, I'm like, look, and I've said this in interviews, and I mean, again, I don't have Tom's contact info, but I'll call him. I'll say, look, you want to play? You want me to house your event for you, or you want to create some sort of a qualifier? Great, let's talk about it. But the reality is I've been reaching out for well over 2 years through Twitter, through email, through phone calls, meetings with Capcom, and the information that comes back to me tells me that there's one or two individuals that just will not get behind it, and that's enough to stymie it. It's not
just
Japan
don't catch
anymore.
a break, do you?
Well, I don't. You know what the reality is? The fact of it is that if that's the case, these people have that power. There must be a reason, and I'm fine with that. I would love one day. I'd love to run, a suite of fighting games, the proper way. Look, I've got, we have an MLG fighting stick that that Mad Catz put out that's selling really well.
Sundance, when you said the proper way, because I don't want your words to get twisted against you, you mean what the community wants, the proper way the fighting game community wants, correct?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, we're not going to come in and apply something that's not authentic. I mean, one thing I'll tell you is that in the past, we've approached things a bit heavy-handed, of course. But I don't know. I don't think. Look, my point of view is that I think that the first competitive game I ever played was Tekken. That's what got me into this stuff. Really, I played Tekken competitively, and I was better than 80% of the people that I played against. And it was the thing that got me going because it was the game I was good at. And then that shifted over time. I have a huge allegiance to it and a huge love for it. And you know what? We will most likely work with Namco in the future and Warner Brothers in the future. I can't say whether or not we'll get, the Marvel Capcom in there, obviously, but we've even got folks at Namco on our, speaking on our behalf for the folks at Capcom. But I'm essentially saying, okay, I've got what I've got, and I've got to make those choices. So, but there's an open real estate in next season's pro circuit. You've seen that room, Jerry. A third of that room.
I was just going to tell you that
a third of that room could be
so much games now to work with that. Before this season, I asked a question. It used to be how many Xboxes do they have? All that seems to have gone away, and you've got a space to fill now. Like, to me, the future starts to become clearer. And I'm going to move this along if that's okay, because you know how it is with us. We're going to be up here probably well past midnight anyway, and I want to be respectful of your time. And let's jump to StarCraft because you mentioned it, because it's the big game in the room. But you said something that caught my attention. Well, and actually, I want to take this back to this last year, and we may actually bounce around the more I think about it. But 2011 has been arguably your best year. I think without question the best year for Major League Gaming as a business. And I think it's important for you to highlight from your perspective, what are some of the accomplishments this year that you are most proud of, and what decisions were made that you think best led up to this? And I mean, obviously, the few no-brainers like StarCraft being added, things like that. But I want to get to more of that granular level of detail about stuff people don't see, right? Because right now it's you got StarCraft and it worked, but it's so much more than that. I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think, last year when I took over, my point of view was that we could no longer have such dramatic. We couldn't favor one game above the others to the extent where you were sacrificing those communities, right? Like if you're on the circuit, you're on the circuit, and so you're going to get equal billing to the extent possible. Now, having said that, that can be tricky because obviously you've got some that are going to be real leaders for you, and some that and some that maybe are going to lag behind. But we committed to invest in those games equally, right? So Call of Duty, obviously there have been issues, and I'm aware of that. And next year's going to look a lot different there, a number of ways, for the better. Halo struggled, and we've got some work to do there. We need to figure out what that game is going to look like next year, what it's going to turn into. StarCraft obviously thrived after a very rough start, after that community not having very much faith in us and what we were doing. And then League of Legends was something that we worked with and had in that room that was successful for us, especially in Providence. So the key decision was, I think, looking at the games and saying, okay, you got to invest in them. You got to invest in overserving the communities and understanding what works and doesn't work, and not kind of coming in and saying, okay, we're just going to apply our methodology to it, and this is the way that things are going to be run. Sure, there were some things over the course of the season that maybe didn't play out the way we would have liked. With some legacy seeding issues prior to the Koreans coming in on the StarCraft side, with some overlap of tournament realms on the League of Legends side when we tried to run it in Raleigh. But those are learning experiences, and one thing hopefully I've proven to people is that I learn when we fall down. With me at the helm, we learn as an organization. So. And, I did catch some flack internally for investing in StarCraft the way that I did, but I saw an opportunity. So
and so here we are, right? The end of your most successful season, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And everybody, and I do mean everybody, everywhere I go, privately, 2012, to many people have a different vision than I do. I see a very challenging year for everyone involved. I'm going to give you my perspective. I'm going to let you break it down how you see fit. IPL arrives on scene. I've had David Ting on the show. I don't get the impression they're going to play well. That worries me. That concerns me. I could be wrong, but that worries me. The idea of having to choose between MLG and IPL frustrates me because, I only have a limited budget. I'm certainly not an EG. And, if I had to choose between the two, obviously, we're a broad community, and you support many more of the games that we are involved in than IPL. And unfortunately, that knocks IPL out of the number one front of my radar screen. Just to be clear with everybody, I mean, anybody in VVV knows this, and our StarCraft players want to go, and if they qualify, we'll support them. But it presents a lot of challenges to us. And I know that's out of your control. You've already said for a long time you're running 4 events, that's it, and we'll see how that ball bounces. And I'm a fan of competition. I think competition keeps us all on our toes, but there can be unhealthy competition. And I want to kind of go game by game. And I'm actually was going to start with StarCraft, but thinking about it now, I want to touch on Halo because Halo has had a rough season. And I see that community in a bit of a culture shock.
Yep.
I see them waking up from a long autopilot. I see them, I don't want to say grasping for maybe the peripherals, because I don't think the Halo community dresses better than the StarCraft community, for those who know what I'm talking about. It was tongue-in-cheek, but I don't think the answer lies there. I don't believe the Halo community's problem is to create more content. Quality is going to be the key because quality is everything now. The game is the game, and when I say the game, I mean eSports as an emerging industry. The bar has been raised very significantly. And I see Halo having a lot of challenges because there isn't that deep talent pool, or there's a select few, and they're going to need to rally behind those select few talented people. That's my cut. Talk a little bit about what you see, because it's been a rough road. I know there's been a lot of back and forth. Some people unhappy, the bloom, no bloom, the feeling of the culture shock of not, we built this city, now we're not as important, all of those kind of things. So I want you to sort of talk about the Halo community as a whole.
Well, I mean, the fact is Bungie left us with a game that was a disservice to the history of this franchise in a lot of ways. And that is what it is. I'm sorry to have to say it, but it was, they went nuts and they released a game that was, how many maps did it ship with? Not a hell of a lot, right? The new game mechanic was a holdover from, some people who came over from FOSSA, from the Shadowrun days, which Shadowrun's still amazing game, but you can't half do it, right? So it was gussying up an IP that they had with some new mechanics, and you know what? They could have struck gold, but instead they missed, which is crazy because Bungie doesn't miss, right? But they did. So from the maps to that classic, all the maps we're playing on look the same, and it's, there's only one game type that really works and all these other things. Then we get these updates over the course of the history of the title, which change it so dramatically that you have people reminiscing about Halo 3 of all things, I mean,
Yeah, I
think
mean,
about
remember that. And people then were all talking about how they missed Halo 2.
Halo
Absolutely.
2, right, and Halo CE. So it's like you've got this great thing. It's diminishing returns almost. So, anyway, so I think that you've got. I mean, there's a ton of challenges. But the reality is this, right? As far as the history of our league, Halo is the most fertile ground. I mean, you've got players like Ogre 2 who are sitting on the cusp of, what happens with that franchise, and more importantly, and this is very important for everybody to understand. I am in no way, shape, or form saying that Halo is dead, but it's on the table and it needs to be resuscitated. 343 has expressed interest in resuscitating it. Microsoft has expressed some interest in resuscitating it with us, meaning it would resuscitate it within eSports. But, and you can see the new playlist with No Bloom and with the Magnum, behaving a little differently and all these great things. There may be a bright future for it. I will say this though right now. It's going to have to do a lot between now and the start of next season in order to get itself to a position where it's going to look anything like it did this year. And I say that because the powers that be that control the hardware that we operate on have expressed a desire for us to focus on a different shooter. And what that turns into is what it turns into. I'm not saying that's a done deal, but we're working with the folks who control the purse strings. And key to this is that you no longer have those guys that we knew, love them or hate them, over at Bungie. Now we've got 343, a whole new studio. That game development is a different process. So there's a lot to work through, and I'm very confident that we'll get there eventually. But next year with Halo may not be what we've seen in the past, or it may be better and bigger, depending on what developments happen between now and January.
Well, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I know you too well, so I'm not going to say anything. All right, let's talk about something that I think should be fairly simple, in theory, but Gears of War 3. I noticed that Hypefestation has sprung up. We get a little grassroots going on that our players went to at a blast. A community run, Beyond Gaming, starting to get things better. I was happy there too. And now, I guess Epic's Peter Nubb is going to go down to Hypefestation. He's booked for the next event. That looks good from what I know of MLG. Yes, no, don't be too confident yet. But, it's looking really good, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've been down. We met with Cliffy and Pete and Quinn down in North Carolina recently, and kind of went through what we want to do. And in terms of the quality of a title and an entertainment factor, I think it's there. I think it's got all the big pieces. They've worked with us to do, like spectator mode, so no longer, getting shot on spawn and all that jazz. But there's other challenges, right? So again, there's the universe that we work in and the business I'm operating, right? We've spent years investing in esports, and it's been an incredibly rewarding experience. But as a business, you've got to be a sustainable and healthy business, right? That's why I took over CEO. So what we need to figure out is, where's the money come from, right? So if we want to run that as a pro circuit title, we're going to need support, and either that's going to come from, and as an Xbox only title, it's either going to come from one of two places. It's going to come from the folks who control the purse strings around the hardware and the marketing of that title, i.e. Microsoft, or you're going to find a third partner who's going to want to fund it. So we're in the works. We're talking with them. We're talking with Epic about me being a unified front. And, I've gotten to know Cliffy over the course of the last 5 months or so, and he fucking loves it. And it's, I think there's a lot of potential there. And the game's entertaining to watch. People will always have their issues with it, but it's entertaining to watch. I think one of our concerns, just to be transparent, and this is not in any way saying that the game's not going to be used, but one of our concerns is that when you look at the Xbox Live traffic at the moment, it currently comes in at number 8. That's a little lower than you'd like going into your planning for a massive investment around an esports competitive gaming title. But that's not in any way, shape, or form me damning it and saying it's it's not going to happen. It's just something to be aware of.
Okay, fair enough. And that probably is not something necessarily in the control of the competitive segment of the Gears of War community. There are just a lot of games out there right now, from Skyrim to Assassin's Creed, and I can see the casual community spending a lot of time on other games. But let me look.
Just one thing I'll throw out there is Halo Reach is number 7.
There you go.
So just for all those people, you got this is the real deal. You got 4 shooters before Reach, and then you got Gears. So it's it's not cut and dry. It's not black and white. And Skyrim lists, even though it's not really Xbox Live, it's just you're just logged in. Those are just all things you have to consider when you're me, and it's
sure,
super complicated.
So let's talk about another big shooter, and that's Call of Duty. I don't know. A lot of people felt it was struggling, and to get its stride. And I want to get your perspective on Call of Duty as a whole, both what happened this season, what maybe you've learned, and where could Call of Duty live in 2012?
Well, I think this year we got Sony to fund the exercise to show what we could do with that title on the console that wasn't the primary, at least within our world, wasn't viewed as the primary destination for Call of Duty players. Sony saw a lot of lift in sales around that title on their hardware, and they were happy with it. Despite that, I think there's, right now there's a lot of conversation that we're having with the folks at Activision and the folks at Microsoft about what our world might look like next year, changing hardware. And we've had conversations with Sony about, freeing their hardware up and maybe moving it to fighting games, right? But I'll say this, as much as it was a challenge, let's say getting folks into the room this year, I think with less than optimal environment for drawing the audience in, we saw growth. We saw growth on the live streams. We saw growth on the attendance to a degree. We had a lot, and this I need to take a moment to say thank you to the Treyarch guys. David Vonderhaar and Jay Perrier were phenomenal and incredibly helpful, knowing that their game was probably going to have a year on the circuit before the next one came along and took its place. But despite that, they made a tremendous amount of changes and effort to, work with us. So Call of Duty is in our future at the moment.
All right.
We're going to see it.
I'm sure the Call of Duty community is going to be happy, but right now leaning toward the 360, although nothing is official.
Nothing is official until it's official.
That's how it usually goes. So I've been critiquing the casters until finally, in my opinion, Golden Boy arrives on scene, and I finally get to see somebody who I think is qualified. That's me. As a matter of fact, I rub it into him all the time that I told him so. So, if I push it too hard, he may quit to spite me, and I think we'd all lose out if that happened. But what is your perspective, or at least the staff's perspective on good job, bad job? And this is not just giving him validation. I'm just serious that I thought it was a problem early on.
Without a doubt. Well, we had Hastro and Fwiz previously, and then those guys moved on and had they've got other things going on in their lives, and Hastro was playing and then coaching and doing really well at that. And so we had a kind of we had an open call, and we put Nexi in charge of that stream and finding the talent. And not gonna lie, it's tough. We forget, there's this strong history of shoutcasting in around some games, but others don't have a ton of it. And so we got people saying, oh, you got to hire this guy, you got to hire that guy, and we brought some people in, and some guys worked out and some didn't. But luckily, the sad thing is we almost lost out on Golden Boy altogether because he had subscribed me to a spam bot on Twitter. So I blocked him forever and was just like, this kid's a pain in the ass, don't work with him. And then we got it resolved. And so he came in and he added a lot of energy. And, I think in a short period of time, he showed us more than we'd seen previously from a lot of guys. So he did a great job.
That's good to hear.
And if I have, not that I have anything to say about that part of the business, but I would assume he'll be back as long as he wants the gig.
Well, I'm not going to say anything because he warned me that he was a temperamental Hispanic, and if I rubbed it in, he would he'd spite me. So I'd like to see the Call of Duty community. It's a popular title, and I think it is what it is. It's not going to go anywhere, and I think there's some really interesting ideas on how to make it more spectator friendly. So, and that's something the community itself has to solve. I try not to get in those conversations because they have to play it.
Well, one of the things I'll ask for the VVV listening and the VVV community to maybe talk about on your site and then report back to me. I've heard a lot of talk of make it more like Counter-Strike. Single game type. Put that on, just have guys play one thing over and over again.
You had to get Curt started. I'm telling you right now, you have yet to meet. I'm going to take this opportunity Sundance, to introduce you to Curt from Check Six, and this is a good time to bring you in, Curt, because I know you got a few things, but Sundance, you are right. That is one of the ideas on the table, and Curt, I'm going to give you a chance to hop in and talk a little bit about what you're thinking.
Oh, he must have done his research. He mentioned Counter-Strike. Oh, Sundance, thank you so much. No, I mean, to me that really strong opinion, from my perspective at least, stands from what, once again, I messed it up the last losers bracket. I think it was Nade Shot, right, who was on Live on 3, who mentioned it. Is that right, Nade Shot or Naded? I get them mixed up.
Nade Shot.
There we go, Nade Shot. Nade Shot, who had mentioned that on Live on 3, the fact that, he thinks, in his opinion, that it should be, a single game type, S&D, stuff like that. And, I mean, from where I come from Counter-Strike, I would absolutely love it. I don't think it would be boring. I think that would be a problem you would have in the sense of maybe people would get a little bit bored of seeing the same thing over and over, but I don't think it would be that way. So, I mean, in my opinion, I agree. I think something like that would really, really help the community a lot and help the game a lot. So, I mean, to me, and you don't have to look any farther than looking at the finals of MLG Providence as well. That was absolutely an amazing ending to an amazing event. So, but anyway, another thing that was brought up by the amazing Golden Boys you guys were talking about was the fact that at these events, that the crowd couldn't hear the casters for COD. That being, of course, because you don't want to spoil the positions of players or anything like that. And I think that's a really, really, a really, really huge problem that I think, if at all possible, should be
not to cut you off, but don't worry about it. It's taken care of.
Awesome to hear then.
Oh wait, I want to jump in. So, how's it taken care of, Sundance? You opened that one up. I hardly ever put you on the spot. Come on.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put the Call of Duty players in a totally different room, and I can't give you that yet, Jared. I'll get in trouble. But it's
You know what? You are going to fix it. I want everybody in the Call of Duty community to hear that. You are going to fix it. You're going to do something critical to make that game. The people who attend your event have a reason to sit down and give Call of Duty a fair shot and let those spectators be able to hear the casters. Is that what I'm hearing right? To make sure I got that right?
Yes, we are definitely working on that, and it's not just because obviously the issue with the game is that you got game types where you can't tip location, right? He's here, he's there, he's everywhere, he's got the bomb, blah blah blah. Like it's and even with Halo this year with the new setup, we had some issues with that where we had to pull certain audio out. So there's the shooter side of it. When you move out of a bowl where you're able to control the audio, you got some challenges. But one thing we do is we learn and we adapt. So we've got plans in the works for next year about that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear all that. I got to tell you, I mean, my boy Dunn, I don't know if he's heard that yet from you or from anyone else, but he's actually casting a Counter-Strike 1.6 match right now with my guys versus EG. So I'm sure he's going to be excited to hear stuff like that too. So,
by the way, speaking of guys, we just beat IS in the ESCA StarCraft. So I think we're coming after you next.
Hey, congrats,
so
man!
Good times. Good times.
Hard team.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So I want to move forward. We can come back and hit these topics. I mean, I think there's more to be said about this, but I think for the core Call of Duty community, they're going to be ecstatic, I think, to hear this. And judging by the stream, they're really happy. Curt, did you have another?
Well, the other thing I'll just really quickly before we move on from that, the thing that they should be really happy about is that, with Elite coming out, a lot of people weren't sure how they were going to interface with us or with game battles or, what we do. They should be very, very happy with the fact that they are investing in the title having legs within the competitive gaming community. So it's good stuff all around.
Well, I mean, I think from casters to everything else, what they have going on there is critical, to be honest, because those kind of stats will help. And we'll talk about this. We really will later, because I want to come at it from a slightly different angle later, because I think it's important about some of the technology challenges on from the standpoint of what will make it more like traditional sports. But let's move to. So we've talked about Halo, we've talked about Gears of War, we've talked about Call of Duty. We've got Halo on the bed on life support. We've got Gears with a few problems, but good. We've got Call of Duty looking, there will be Call of Duty next year, as you said. And I want to work next to the PC side a little bit, and I want to cover League of Legends, because I feel like I know, a lot of people know, no secret, great stream numbers. Providence, all of a sudden, there were people there, and they were enjoying themselves, and it was something good. So I'm going to bring in our League of Legends manager, Christian, who can probably talk a little bit about what his experience was. I think it's important because, I'll be honest, Sundance, this community is passionate in a really interesting way, and I was not that thrilled about it, but I'm quick to learn from previous mistakes. So, Christian, I'll turn it over to you. Christian is our mobile manager for VV Gaming, Asylum, Sundance Asylum.
Good evening.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. And what Jerry didn't tell you is I was sitting right behind him, whimpering, saying, "Bring me in, bring me in, bring me in." But Legends, holy crap! We if you don't know, I'm sure you don't, but Providence was actually my first MLG. And I went there primarily for League of Legends. And I've looked at other events like Orlando, Raleigh, a bunch of the ESL events that were streamed. And, there were quite a few people there. But Providence, especially that final match, was just absolutely amazing. Every seat was filled. There were people standing, literally crowding around the League of Legends stage. And at times the cheers were drowning out that of StarCraft. What are your thoughts on that? That's just, in my opinion, it's absolutely amazing.
Well, I mean, I like being right. I'm not going to lie, and that was something that we said a while ago. People said, "Oh, you'll never get people in the room," and I think the excuse me, the fact of the matter is that if you got 35 million people worldwide playing that game, there's going to be overlap, right? Not necessarily playing it at a high level, but people who play it. And we've met with Riot and sat with them on several occasions and talked about what we think we could do. And I think what we've proven is that, and what you've seen from some other events, not to name names, but, if just throwing a League of Legends tournament and getting some teams together in a casino in Atlantic City, let's say, doesn't mean you're going to get an audience. It's about how you structure it. It's about really planning. It's about messaging to the community. It's about building something where you can have an audience there. When those interviews for the floor happened, there was raucous. It was comparable to what you saw at StarCraft. It brought out a lot of good feelings and emotions. So there's a lot to build on there. Again, but we're very calculated in what we do. And, we had that swing and miss in Raleigh, which was, hurricane and another event going on and all these other things. But after that, I said, look, Riot, we've got one shot to get this right. Otherwise, no one's going to take us seriously. And we worked diligently to have that online qualifier come together and to have those teams come in and to put on a good show. So I was very happy.
And I'm sure all the viewers at home and everyone at Providence was extremely happy. I, for one, I couldn't keep my eyes off of League of Legends the whole weekend. But there is one pressing question that I did have, and that goes to the commentary side of League of Legends. There's a lot of talk about Riot and the ESL having kind of a monopoly on casting, and I know there's some casters out there, myself, Forecourt Jester, a bunch of people out there, who are kind of wondering if we're going to get our shot to do some sort of casting or commentary at the higher levels, like the IPLs, the MLGs, the NASLs, for League of Legends, and for other MOBAs in general. You know what I'm saying? And I was wondering if there's an agreement with Riot there where they do all the majors and where ESL does all the majors in Europe and international, and what's going on with that, if you can say anything.
Well, I just say, just look, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's enjoy the fact that it's working, it's going on, and let's see where it takes us. I mean, our goal is to put together the best possible show for everybody, plain and simple, right? So, yeah. So, I mean, what we're going to do is we're going to work with Riot to get what we both feel like the best experience together for the players is. And they've got, they happen to have some guys who work for them who are casters. And so you're going to see those guys every now and then. But
Right.
I wouldn't read too much into it. We have not locked everything in for next year. And I think what we're going to do is listen to the community, which we try and do a good job of that always. Right. And then once we've spoken to those guys and figured out what works and what people respond to, we'll adjust on the fly, and that's it. So I mean, like, that's all I can say is, look, if things come together the way we're looking to make them happen around League of Legends, and I can't even say 100% now whether or not they are going to for next year. Just again to put it out there, something crazy might happen between now and next week, and I might come back and tell you, Jerry, that look, you know what, Riot's decided to go in another direction. I don't think that'll happen, but if we do it, we're going to do it big. We're going to do it bigger than we did it this year. You're going there, and we're going to get those guys elevated up a bit. We're going to have that in the room caster experience even better than it was.
Hearing that, I have like a million things that go through my head that I crack myself up because I start thinking, well, I don't know, there's you, and then there's ESL, and then there's IEM, but we won't go there yet. We'll wait before I touch on that some more, because I think there is a lot that still could happen with League. But to be clear, for the League of Legends fans out there, definitely on your radar screen is something you want to do, and if you do, you'd like to do it even bigger next year. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I'd like to do it bigger than anybody else does.
Okay, well,
That's getting me all giddy. That's getting me all kinds of giddy.
I have a quick question actually about LOL before we move on, because I think you want to move on to another topic. I suppose my main question would just be, what are your thoughts around Dominion? I know it's a quick game. It's very
I love
hype.
it. I love it. Love it.
To be fair, now I'm assuming that you love it not just because it's fast paced, but it really will be, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. People realize, you've got only a weekend to do the game. It's a lot more manageable from a tournament organizer standpoint.
Well, I mean, I think, look at it this way. Look, do we want to have 32 teams, 64 teams, 128? I mean, where do we want to land? I can't say that we would only run that. I look, again, I'm going to work with Riot. Riot's leaning in a direction in terms of how the competitive space around their game should go. We may not agree 100% on it, but we're going to take that into account. We're also going to talk to the community. We're going to talk to the team, the folks who run teams, and we're going to figure out a mix that works. Okay? Maybe we do that in the open, and then you get into the championship bracket and we mix it up a bit. The reality is, the smarter people than me will figure this out. But I can guarantee you that we're going to take the things that work around that, right? And look at the things that have made the game what it is today and see if a blend makes sense. And if not, maybe we won't mix it up too much out of the gate. But,
well, at some level, I think, I don't know. I tend to be too bottom line or too logical, but I mean, if I were betting, all things point to Dominion, because it just seems like, not that you couldn't continue to do what you're doing, you could. But when I hear you want to go big, and of course, provided the community will support it, then Dominion would be the way to go. But obviously nothing's finalized. I understand that. But if I were a League of Legends player out there and I were thinking about, should I, practice Dominion more, would your advice be yes?
My advice would be to try and be as the most well-rounded player possible in all potential competitive game types.
You're so political. That was wonderful, Sundance.
That was great. He practiced that, I think.
All right, so there we go, League of Legends. I guess we could jump to StarCraft next, but before we do, I keep delaying the StarCraft a little bit because I kind of feel like the first-person shooter space. There's a lot of talk about Counter-Strike Go, and I always tell Curt that there's not a chance.
Okay. I will do this for you just because I like you, Jerry, and we've known each other for a long time. Here's the order. Call of Duty, Halo, Battlefield, Counter-Strike Go, and for first person. I'm not counting. Now, Gears, guys, relax. But if you're going to look at first-person shooters that we've been approached and there's initiatives around them, that's the order. So Go is bottom down. I mean, there's no push right now in our world from the people we're talking to. We'll see. I mean, that may change. Battlefield, it would probably be on PC. We've actually, a little secret out there, we worked closely with DICE to get some of our DNA into that game. We'll see whether or not that comes to fruition in the near future or not, in terms of us being able to do something with it. And as I already said, the Call of Duty, that franchise, the powers that control that franchise have put a big push. They like what we do, as they see it as supporting Elite in a major way, and even maybe even plugging into XP next year.
Well,
okay, hold on. I can't. Jerry. You know me, Jerry. I can't.
No, I got to. You know what? Here's the thing, though, right? I keep thinking about the fact that there is one company that is putting itself in such a powerful position, and that's Activision/Blizzard, in such a powerful way that
makes you think, doesn't it?
Well, it's clear. I mean, it's clear. Valve is not, and some people are getting it, and I promise we'll come back to Curt. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, because I know. So, I guess we have to go to the big game in the room and talk about StarCraft. You mentioned one thing I thought that was really important. Some people may not like the extended series. Let's put that to rest. It's going to remain. It serves an important purpose. People can agree to disagree, and I happen to not be bothered by it. So for those of you out there who really want me to push Sundance on this, I don't know, hit them up on Twitter and bother them. I'm not seeing that. So I don't see that as the fight I want to fight. I don't really have much to fight about at all, actually. But I do. That one thing that's got to go, and you know this, so we just get to it right away. How are you going to change pool play so it's not ridiculous?
I never said I was going to change it so it wouldn't be ridiculous. But
you're going to find a different ridiculous. Can we at least get a different ridiculous?
Well, what if we put everybody's name into a hat? Look, the point of pool play is...
I'd be more interested in that.
There's some people who would have liked that, so be careful.
Yeah,
They're going to run around. Dude, we should do the hat thing. I'm telling you, we should do the hat thing.
Send a lot of players to events. I got a pretty high chance with that, at least.
Okay, well, how about this? How about I mean, okay, at the extreme end of things, right? There's this ideal that we'd like to kind of aspire towards, where the competition sorts it out, right?
Crap, I say that.
I know. Let me finish, Jerry. And then or then there's kind of like, well, we sanction and we choose the best matches that we want to see, and we determine who's number one in the world and who's number two. See UFC and also GSL. This is what GSL does, right? They choose. Their whole thing is fabricated based upon what they want to create in matchups and have these pools set up a certain way, right, with a certain amount of player interaction. I think the biggest challenge for us is that 6 live events spread out over the course of 10 months or whatever the ungodly time frame it was this year, it gets stale, right? So what if we had things that ran within shorter periods, and you actually had engagements in between these large events where their one-loss record mattered, and you actually got seeded up more based on not just your performance that weekend, but you carried a record in. We've got stuff in the works. Pool play is, right now, it's everything and nothing. I'll admit it that there's problems with it, but again, we came up with pool play. You know why? Pool play is my fault, so yell at me about that, because I said I need more meaningful matches on Friday, Saturday, leading into Sunday, just so like player, rather than just a top team jolly stomping on some crap team. I need it mixed up a little bit. So Yeah, there are times when it's not the best, but there's also times when it actually can be entertaining, and we gotta fix it. I know. It'll be one of the things that we're addressing. It'll be one of the things that we've got a little bit of a different structure around for next year.
I think it's something worth hitting on, though, for those who are critiquing it. So the community doesn't just come at it with this, it's broke. I think it's important to highlight some of the purposes of pool play. And you just mentioned one. I think it's really important that everybody understands it's not great to watch an unnamed player whose first event, maybe even coming to play just for fun, having to have him play against a Huck or Naniwa or someone. It's not good for anybody. I think we can all agree with that at some capacity. So are there other considerations that you have to take into account, or you do take into account when you think about how to adjust the system?
Well, you know what? Let's put it this way. I'm the NFL, right? So I've got certain rules that maybe aren't that popular to some people, or let's say Major League Baseball. Right? I think the Major League Baseball playoff system is garbage. I think it's the first round being 5 games, second being 7, World Series being 7. Like a team with one great pitcher can win that first round and then get crapped on. But it's about them being, in a short series, lining up well. Consistency is really key, right? So what I've got to do is I've got to balance out the consistency of being a competitive league that's performance merit based and an entertaining broadcaster, right? All those numbers that everyone saw today are because guess what? We nailed it this year. For the 6 weekends we were on the internet, we were the third biggest thing in the world of live streaming video behind things like Netflix and PlayStation Network. I mean, it's just, we were huge. So that's mission accomplished there. But now what we need to do is we need to figure out a way to not have these huge gaps in between the events, to get these top teams playing more, to get an opportunity for these lower, less known players or teams to get some screen time during the large events, because that's the only time they're going to be, on the big stage. So yeah, there's certain things that need adjustment. I mean, it's not black or white, right? It's not simple to the extent where I can just say, all right, from now on, what I'm going to do is I'm Dana White, and I want to see Brock Lesnar versus, Kane. I'm just going to choose what I want to see. I can't do that. Yeah, I could create a separate area for that, and I am. But for my pro circuits or you're the best on the planet today, it's got to be performance based. And unfortunately, it's either the extreme or it's not. I went for more entertaining and potentially more team killing than people would have liked. But it's having those matchups right out of the gate is crucial to having 3 days of big broadcast numbers. So, and that was while maintaining the competitive merit. Because I could just say, guess what? We're going to watch Boxer versus everybody all weekend. He's just going to play nonstop, and my ratings would have been through even bigger. Boxer plays, and I get the best ratings in the world, right? Or Instinct versus somebody, or Optic playing all weekend on the main stage. Look, I know, get along with all those groups really, really well. I could have arranged it, and people would have called me out, but they would have watched, and I would have done even better on the numbers side. But I can't. It's got to be in the middle. It's got to be.
That'd be very short-term thinking, to be fair, too. I think.
No, exactly. I mean, that would be similar to some of the folks we've seen fail before.
Absolutely. No, I agree. So, I think it's time to talk about some of the tougher things that I think are up and coming, and I want to start with IPL. I really do. Obviously, they're going to compete with you.
Yep.
And obviously, they're probably not going to play nice. The sources that we have inside IPL are not pointing at that. This is whatever it is. You, as an organization, have competition, which I do understand, and I think a lot of people believe is healthy. I cringe because I don't have, say, EG's budget that they have. I don't.
Well,
and I wonder, and I wonder, right? So, how does MLG react to this? And obviously, you're not going to give your strategy away to the whole world, but
I'll give you my strategy.
About how you feel about it.
I'll give everybody my strategy. I'm going to be better than them. I'm going to be better than IPL. I'm going to be smarter than them. I'm going to have a better relationship with the publishers that matter and a better relationship with the communities that I serve. And if I don't deserve to be in business. Look, this is not some, look, I've never met Dave Ting. I know Roy Bahat, I know the CEO of IGN, spoken to them about working with them in the past, was told they had no interest in this space. Dave Tink, they reached out and said, hey, we'd like to send Dave to your event in Anaheim. Can you get him some passes? I said, sure, no problem. Dave came, took the passes, never took the time to introduce himself to me. And I said, all right, that's fine. He's here doing recon. Not a problem. So I say this is somebody who doesn't, like, look, if it were me, I'd be like, I'm going to talk to this guy and I'm going to learn everything I can, right? But no, he didn't. So from that moment right there, I knew what I was dealing with, which I was dealing with somebody who was ready to get into this without fully understanding who their adversary was. I know who they are. I've beaten News Corp before. I'll beat them again. I don't care. Or anybody else. And like I said, the way I'll beat them is I will do a better job. I'll work harder. I'll work longer. I'll work smarter. I'll do it with less money. I'll do it on my own. And then whatever, and we'll let the communities decide. So, at the end of the day, I don't mind the competition, but look at what I do. Look at what they do. And if you think it's competition, great. I don't. I really don't. Here's what I look at. I look at somebody like a DreamHack and I say, look, that's somebody I want to work with. What those guys pull off is amazing. I look at an ESL and I say, is there an opportunity to do something with them over time? I look at the movement in the UK. I say, is there something there? I look at IPL as, well, the second this doesn't pan out from a numbers standpoint, Dave Ting's back to being a network engineer and they're not in a game. And that's fine. And that, look, that's not me saying, I'm not discrediting them or saying I don't believe that they're going to put in a good effort, but the way they're doing it already is wrong. So that's my 2 cents. Well,
what I like about the fact is, again, you're being transparent. You're not mincing words, and I appreciate that. And, to be honest, listening to you, I think a lot of people who hear this are going to be glad that you are steadfast, ready to compete. And I think, and maybe this is one of those opportunities again, Sundance. We talk a little bit about the world of business because, to be honest, earlier tonight with Tom, I felt he was a little naive about the reality of what you do, what leagues can do for players. I always use this example. If I had a StarCraft player that I couldn't afford and EG could give a better life to, I wouldn't hold on to them with a dying fist. It's not. If you love esports, you should want the same things. Even if you have to give up a little bit of territory to get that growth, everybody wins in the long run. I think that's hard for a lot of people to see.
No.
But I know you get it. That's like the part that makes me deeply comfortable. Maybe Tom doesn't know you or doesn't get that part of it, but you've seen you from firsthand experience. And I think this is a reminder moment where a lot of people don't remember that you started MLG, and to be fair, you lost control of your own company, and then the person who ran it and the team that ran it had a completely different vision, and then you got your company back, right? That's the Steve Jobs story in a way. And I'm not blowing smoke up your ass and say you're Steve Jobs to make that clear to the audience, but there's that parallel of learning from your mistakes and getting your passion reignited and coming back. And at least from my perspective, that is your story. You are coming back into this, and your first year back. Right. Again, some people could say, hey, StarCraft arrived. He got lucky. Well, you know what? Leadership is about taking advantage of what you have. And you clearly took advantage of what you had and produced numbers. So with that being said, I want to focus a little bit more on Sundance, you've got this challenger. You like DreamHack. You like ESL. Partnerships may be a way. David Ting's listening. He's like, oh, my God, I need to reach out and make partnerships, whatever the case may be. I want to talk about some of your strengths coming up for what you want to do next year from a business perspective, right? Mm-hmm. Give the players, the fans out there a little bit about, and I think you can be proud in this case. This is why Major League Gaming right now is the premier esports league possibly in the world. I don't want to get into a GSL, MLG, StarCraft discussion, but you're doing great things. Talk a little bit about how you stack up and where you are in esports right now as a league.
Well, I think, again, as a league, because we've run a series of events, I don't think that anybody, I think GSL is comparable in around one game, but I'll tell you right now, our viewership numbers are far stronger.
Just to be clear, the MLG stream numbers are better than GSL viewership. That is correct, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so everybody's heard that.
Yeah. No, I mean.
Right, and I get that. I just want to make it clear.
But we're different. I mean, look, I have IMG as a distribution partner, and I've got, You know, I don't have the language barrier, and I've got, you know, as much as people in in parts of Europe will complain about my time, I've got a better broadcast time to get a bigger audience. The population of North America dwarfs that of South Korea. Let's just start there. Okay,
so fair, right? And for somebody to understand, you've never been competing with GSL. To be clear,
we have a partnership.
Exactly. I want to make that clear to everybody so they don't think that was.
No, this is not a slight.
Well, you know how it is. I got to make that clear.
They've got the best StarCraft talent on the planet in their backyard. That's why I have a partnership with them. I have a formal relationship with them for a reason, and you know, and that's only going to broaden. Again, my whole point of view is I don't have an issue until somebody gives me a reason to. And I saw numerous interviews around the launch of IPL with their approach and them taking kind of, you know, saying certain things about us as an organization and me potentially. It's, you know, like, there you go. Like, that's great. Now, again, so when everything dries up and we've seen what, you know, who the winner is, I think we'll have, you know, a good indication as to why. If I use that as fuel, that's just because I'm not smart enough and I don't have enough drive. But I got to find some reason to get out of bed, right? So my reason for getting out of bed every day is because I believe that we'll do this better than anybody else. That doesn't mean I won't partner with certain people, and it doesn't mean that I'm not competing with certain people. But some people I will compete with, and my goal when I compete with you is to put you out of business. It is, because we're competing. We're fighting for space. Right? Like, you're in my space, I'm in your space. Maybe not 100%, but that's in a direct competitive way. Like, and this is because of the experiences I've had in the past with people coming in and trying to buy out the rights to games, trying to, you know, take things that I had built and pay with a large check, pay to make that inaccessible to me. So my reaction is when I see that behavior again, I go on the offensive. I have no issue with DreamHack, folks. I have no issue with Home Story Cup. I have no issue with ESL. I have no issue with a ton of the Evo. I have no issue with a ton of anything labeled grassroots. I don't have an issue with it. Anything that's kind of got a similar story, no issue with it. What I have an issue with is when I'm taken to task over the fact that, you know, how I've built the business, or what, even when I wasn't in charge of the business. So when I look at a GSL and I look at an opportunity there, I fly to Korea, I meet with them, I sit down with them, and I say, here's what I'm going to do. And they say, that sounds great. And I say, here's how I'm going to prove it to you. Send me some players, and here's how the deal is going to work, and you're going to see something you've never seen before. They see it, and they're like, wow, this is fantastic. What we're going to do next year with them is going to blow people's minds. And the reason it's going to blow people's minds is because of what I did this year. And what I'm going to do next year is going to make everybody look back at this year and be like, wow, remember when that was a big deal? Because otherwise, what's the point? Like, we're still... My goal is to constantly outdo ourselves. It's not worrying about it's you know what, I had a great conversation in Providence with Alex from EG, right? And EG is viewed by a lot of people in a lot of different ways. But one of the things he said, which stuck with me, and I thought was a great quote, was he's like, I'm not worried about, you know, just being in first. I'm worried about making sure that the distance between me and who's in second is getting bigger all the time. Now, whether or not that's the reality, I can't speak to his business. But as a point of view, how you're going to look at something, that's a pretty good way to look at things.
Absolutely.
Right?
No,
that's
I
healthy.
think
and I'm American, so of course I think I'm the best thing in the world. So, you know, sorry. Look, I give people enough reason not to like me. I should stop talking about this. But I think, look, everyone's going to win next year because, look, if I can motivate somebody maybe to do a little bit of a better job than they would have, fantastic. If somebody can motivate me to do a little bit better, that's fantastic. It's because in the end, the communities win, and that's what it's about. But again, I will do better.
Okay, so I have nothing more on IPL. I think you answered that straightforward and direct. With the changes next year, I'm going to throw out an idea, a possibility, and I want you to address it as direct as you can. You're going to be less open to Tom's concern almost, that there's going to be qualifiers, and it's cheaper for you to just get the best players and stream them, and there's less of that open feel at an event. There's less of that ability of everybody to participate, that you'd rather do qualifiers. Look, IPL does it. It's cheaper. MLG is going to do it, and we're not going to have those big open brackets anymore because it's just not cost effective. Nobody comes to see crummy people play. True, false, mischaracterization? What do you think?
Well, one of the big things I think is attractive about what we do in the pro circuit environment, meaning what will be those 4 large events
Absolutely.
next year.
I'm talking only about those,
Right.
not about.
There's open. So that's not going away. There's open accessibility. Anybody can come off the street and be the next big thing. Right. That's important to me. I play on the same equipment on the same competition floor as the best in the world, and that's crucial. Right. So, look, I need to do more in between those things.
Right.
Okay?
And to be fair, right, the more in between those events, and you mentioned it before, and I want to highlight it, there is a real business advantage to watching 2 top StarCraft players, right? Whether it's whoever, I could mention any, boxer versus hawker, anybody.
Yeah.
Right. And that makes, you need that. You need to do that for business. Anybody who disagrees with that is being blind. That's great. It's great you can do that. Agree so far, correct?
100%. I think that's an accurate statement.
Now there's the people that aren't EG, whoever they are. I get a special place because we have a different model. But then Curt doesn't have EG's budget, and Curt's not going to disagree with this. He's still going to worry about, you know what, and I'm sure he heard you say earlier, how do I showcase those players who are the great personalities? I mean, look at In Control. I mean, I rag on Jeff all the time. Trust me, his brother's in our organization. I love him as a person, but he spent way too much time in pool, and he wasn't quite there. And something I rag on quite consistently. But while he's there are other players who might be up and coming that need that exposure. So how does a Check 6, a VVV, anybody who isn't an EG, what happens in between for us? Do you see yourself doing things to showcase talent? Or honestly, look, Jerry, I've got a bottom line, and that's secondary because right now I've got to continue to build our sponsorship base and our investors, et cetera, et cetera. Where are you as a business?
Well, right. So look, there's a certain extent, there's a certain degree of me needing to sit with folks and understand on the team level a little bit more of the ins and outs, the challenges of what they do. Because you guys all operate differently. Well, not all of you, but a lot of you do, right? And I think there's a certain amount that I can help with, and there's a certain amount that I just can't. I mean, no matter what I do. But if I can give you a platform whereby you can promote and develop the brands of both your organizations and your players, right? And you can have access to things such as relevant statistical data, like when your team was playing against this other team, here's how many people were watching globally. Here's where the stream peaked out. Here's access to high quality footage so you can cut your own highlight reels and go speak to sponsors. Here's a letter of recommendation from me saying so it's an organization we work with. We see them as being reputable. I can do those things, and I need to do more of it. Admittedly, it's on me. I promise to do more of it.
Trust me, I'm sure Alex Garfield right now is very happy. I don't know.
But if you guys have a shitty business model, right? If you're somebody who doesn't have a good business model, then I can't. That's business, right?
No, of course.
And so I think I think that there will be a bit of a shakeout. I think there'll be a bit of a shakeout. I think there'll be a bit of a shift. I think they're the haves and the have-nots, and anyway. But I think in the end, what I need to do is create a platform where folks can exist, and there's enough there. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not the only one. There's still, let's say, Dave has got his stuff, and you're going to go and play in casinos, and it's great. Nobody shows up to watch. If that's better, that's better. So sorry, I can't help it. But our legal.
I like the side of you. You entertain me. I want you to know that. I've known you for a long time, and I haven't seen it in a while. It's been a while. It has been a while. So
I just had people. You wouldn't believe the shit that I heard. The back channel I heard. It's just crazy. The way I was categorized. The way I was talking.
Oh, look, trust me.
It wasn't just the back channel.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it was out in the air.
Curt and I, a lot of people. This is a small industry. Let's not lie. A lot of people work for a lot of people, and we get a lot of talk, and everybody talks, and I knew when I told David Ting, play nice, that it was empty words. It was more for the record. I said it, but as more and more information came back, and this is not to say, let me make it clear that I love Jedi Rob. I love the fact that he got an opportunity to work at IPL. I thought David Ting made a brilliant move, and for some organizations it's easier than me. Maybe because I look at this and I keep shaking my head like, man, we're not there yet. We're not quite there yet, and I wish it wouldn't go this way. But I do believe that you're absolutely right in saying this is the time for you to absolutely go at that competition head on and do the best you can. I think any other answer, to be fair, would be avoiding what really is the challenge that lies ahead. I want to move forward. I want to talk about international. Go ahead, Curt. Go ahead, Curt.
Can I ask? I mean, what we were talking about before with the sort of showcasing some of the underdogs, I guess is the way to put it, maybe under showcase talent. Where I come from is a place of not necessarily blaming MLG for my problems. My problems are my problems, and if it comes to a point to where I feel like StarCraft isn't showing the kind of, I guess, return on exposure that I need, I'll have to figure out what to do with that. It's not MLG's fault. It's not MLG's problem. But, I've sent, 40 players or so to MLG events over the course of, this season and last season. And I've been on main stage with those players, despite them getting fairly far in the bracket, once for all the other events except Providence, and in Providence it was twice, and like 4 of the open bracket streams. So my thing is I love the way Providence was done. I know it can't be done that way all the time, more than likely. But I just wonder if there's anything like that in works to actually showcase some of the talent, that isn't necessarily in Control or IDRA.
Right. So let's say for those pro circuit events, if you had somebody who was top 8 or top 16, depending on the game you're talking about, and you knew that they were going to get meaningful competition play in within the MLG universe, and that was every single game played within that structure was going to be broadcast. And then there was these pro circuits. Again, as I said, if we've only got 18 days a year where we have our competition happening, it's pretty tough to spread that around, right? But if we've suddenly got 30 weeks, 35 weeks, 40 weeks where there's meaningful gameplay happening, you're gonna get your crack, because it's going to change a little bit of that structure at day one of those big events, and because if you're playing well and you're doing well and you're moving up the ranks, you're going to get yourself into a place where you can play a lot. You can play a lot, and meaningful games are going to be viewed by a lot of people.
Gotcha.
If somebody were smart enough to do that, it's kind of a structure.
All right, back to you, Jay.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about content, Sundance. It's been a conversation on many broad levels, and we talked a little bit about casting earlier. And like you pointed out, hey, there's a whole rest of the year, and you're going to need content, I think, and it's going to be players playing. That's one form. And you talked a little bit earlier about leading up to having people compete, and I think, be able to contribute. And are there plans, or is there anything you're going to need to do to get more community-driven content for next year? Is that a need? Do you really need it? What do you see your future around content looking like?
Well, good question. I think we're looking at what we do and how we do it. In terms of, the most important thing is competition. Live competition is key. What we do is all about competition. So I think, the interesting thing is you've got this land grab now around the live streaming and people being signed up, with the Twitches, and I think Machinima Live, and everybody says, wow, this is what Twitch has done is great, and then there's Own 3D, and the problem is that, is it really great if 50 people are watching, or is it great if you've got a community that's then going to come back to it and watch it, once it's a VOD, or what's the point of it is that on the content side of things, the best content is, it's high level competition, or big personalities playing, or just pure personality, meaning somebody's hilarious in the way they do something. You can see what somebody like a Husky has done, right? with his channel on YouTube and whatnot. I think we will do a little bit. We'll get a little bit more focused and partner with some of these organizations that are out there doing the broader stuff a little bit. But I think it's absolutely crucial to the players and to the communities and to the folks who do this stuff on the regular. You've got to produce content. I mean, you just have, like, just make it part of your, am I playing, you know, hit the button, encode that stuff and send it live. Because number one is when, let's say that one of your guys, Jerry, becomes a huge player on the scene 6 months from now. If he has 6 months worth of archive footage for people to go and scour through, guess what? They will. And that's important. I mean, that's the history of how he got to this point, you know, with or without commentary, with or without, you know, him playing.
I don't know. I agree. I mean, that's why we save everything. I agree with you 100%. I think
it costs nothing. Just do it.
Yep.
That's my advice.
It does. I mean, I we all compete
in
in different areas, and I compete on the ROI level. I am proud to spend less than any of my competitors. I'm proud of that. Yeah. I know it's not sexy. I know it is, but I will put my books up against anyone's books and say, look, we get more value per dollar than anyone else because we get the long term. We're here to stay. We get it. Yeah. And I think you're right. I mean, that's why we've built what we do, uniquely positioned to bring people from good to great, and then, you know, there's great to the very top. And if we have to do a handoff, as I say all the time, we will. But one of the things that I heard said by a Halo player that concerned me a little bit, and something that I've heard echoed from other people, is if you do more content, right? And it's a broad question, right? Do you in some ways feel that you start to oversaturate? Like, what is the saturation? And I bring this up because, and I'm sure you know this, I really do. And I need to find a way to tell players this, because the way I say it, so you know, is I say, look, if you're a Gears player, if you're a Halo player, if you're a Call of Duty player, and you're a StarCraft player, I, as a viewer, as a spectator, I get to choose what content I want to watch. And you know what? I've only got so many hours a day. And with the way cross-pollination is increasing, I can watch a lot of different games. So, you know what? If there is a StarCraft final going on at the same time as a Call of Duty final, Jerry, I'm going to watch the StarCraft final. I am. I may tell other people that may influence other people, right? But it's fact. It's human nature, right? It's just like that. You've got that challenge, but you've got it in a unique way, right? Because in the real world, I can watch football, and then I can go on to watch basketball, and then I can go on to watch baseball, and then I got to watch, hockey. It's all nicely divided up. Here, it's not so much. So when you start to think about all the content that also comes with this, you get to the level of, is there some sort of saturation point? Or will next year really be 50 times more about the quality, right? Because we already get oversaturated with content. And I'm just wondering, is there ever a discussion about that quality versus quantity? Because I do get concerned. I get concerned that you as a business, me as an outsider looking at you as a business, your audience, your spectators, they still have a lot of muck to sort through. Well, and I don't know if you guys feel that way.
No. Well, I mean, look, when we do a broadcast of competition, it's a little bit different, right? When we've just got even our talking head shows, the guys who are, in our studio, whether it's Slasher or the State of the Game guys who are going to broadcast right now, it's like, I'll be honest with you, getting 10,000 people watching, that's great, but it's not, it's not 100,000, it's not 200,000, it's not, and there's a point where you say to yourself, okay, got to double down on what works, and the others, all the other supporting things that are bits and pieces. You've got to really justify it. I mean, I think the key to it is, look, if I was a player and I said I could earn $5 a week by just streaming my gameplay and then have people understand a little bit more of who I am, screw the $5. What that is, that's an investment in people understanding a little more of who I am. That's an investment in me taking the time so that people can just say, hey, I like this guy, or hey, I don't like this guy. But so then I'm building a relationship with a fan base as a player, right? And then take it up a level to an organization, and then take it up a level to a league. So, it's, like I said, if it's all that it takes is, having a semi-decent PC and some software, I mean, that's a pretty compelling argument for give it a shot. In terms of the saturation, that sorts itself out. Because I think we've got imagine someone comes into this world cold, right? And the first thing they see is Ninja or Strongside streaming Halo, or they see Arctic, or Gandhi doing some Gears of War 3 stuff, or they see Destiny doing StarCraft and they're scared away. I mean, like it's you have to think of it from that perspective too. It's like there's a lot of hooks, and kind of bouncing around Twitch and seeing, or this show. Say somebody tunes in right now. I mean, what the hell? They're gonna be like, this is not what I was looking for. Or it's exactly what they're looking for. The point is with the content out there, you let the audience decide. The cream rises to the top. Everything else is still out there. But look, I don't know about you, but on my cable box, there's over 750 channels. And you know how many I watch? 7.
No lie, right?
Right? I watch 7 of them. And I'm not alone. I'm not alone. This is the world we live in. So oversaturation, yeah. I mean, you got a smartphone. How many times have you checked it since I've been talking? Right? You got a window open with something else. This is what we've done to ourselves. So just do a good job, and you'll rise to the top. I get asked this all the time from people, players. I want to go pro. I tell them, first thing I tell them is like, do you stream? They say no. So that's the first thing you need to do. Come back and talk to me when you're streaming.
Trust me. Go ahead, Curt.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to comment? I just had a question sort of pertaining to that. Okay, anyway, but on that note, the Fuck Slasher show is absolutely amazing. I just have to say, I absolutely love the show. I think Slasher I don't think anyone else could do that show like Slasher does it. And it was an amazing choice, whoever's idea it was. So, but I suppose I have a sort of a question that sort of pertains to what we were talking about is a lot of people have been, the StarCraft community has blown up. It's a huge community, and it's a very, very vocal community. Because of that, you get a lot of people that aren't too receptive to other games. You saw this, you don't see it nowhere near as much at MLG because you have separate streams and things like that than you did at DreamHack. At DreamHack, it was really, really bad. People were, very, very abrasive to all the other games that were included. And you see it later with them making threads like, on Reddit, like, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm only here for StarCraft. What do you think about that? What can MLG do to try to bring over some of those people? Some of the people that aren't just here for StarCraft, or people that are just here for StarCraft. How do you try to?
Well, I mean, all right, so. I'll be honest with you. All I ask is that everybody be respectful. But do you follow any traditional sports? Are you a fan of traditional sports?
I actually don't.
You don't? Okay.
I follow Counter-Strike.
Okay, you follow Counter-Strike. You follow Counter-Strike. All right. So, but I'll make this random. All right. Let's say you were a huge cricket fan, right? You love cricket. That's what I know about you. First time I met you, you were checking scores on your phone.
I'm more of a nerd now than I was watching video games.
Right, and it's Sunday, and I'm like, hey, dude, screw cricket, let's go watch football. Right, and I'm like, and here's football, and you're like, no, that's crazy. Those guys, they're touching each other's ass, and I want to watch cricket. It's only I can bring you to the water. I can't force you to drink. It's like I can explain it to you, but I can't make you comprehend it. I'm not going to fight to convert the masses in general around this whole thing, this thing called eSports. I'm also not going to fight to get the shooter fan to be a fan of the RTS, to be a fan of the MOBA, to be a fan of the fighting game, but what I'm going to insist upon, if you're going to be part of it under my roof, show some goddamn respect, plain and simple, or get out. And this is one of the issues we've had historically with some of the communities, and guess what? I've stuck to my guns on that, and it sorts itself out. There's no place for it, in my opinion. But again, the other side of it is, the shared stage thing is difficult. Not being clear in what your broadcast schedule is difficult. That's why we have so many goddamn streams, is because I'm not, I try not to be like, hey, although we had to do it a couple of times with Sony this year, but if you're tuning in for StarCraft, you're not going to be watching us play, freaking some other random game that I can't think of because I'm not that smart at the moment. I was going to go with Solitaire because I was using an interview I did today, but no.
Yeah, I understand. I just, it irks people like me who tend to support, a lot of games, but
But you're
it's
the
just hard.
minority, man, and you're a beautiful minority, and don't forget it, and be the vocal minority on that front, right? Like seriously, like if everybody was a double threat or triple threat, think about how easy it would be. If everybody had one or two or three different genres or games that they knew a little bit of the history of, they knew who the top teams were, they knew who the top players were, we'd be a far more difficult, kind of community to deal with because our numbers would increase dramatically.
Yeah.
No,
All right,
that's
Jerry,
true.
back
That's
to you,
true.
bud.
I do want to do a couple community questions, if not more. And one of the things I want to talk about is, have we not talked about something? Is there some things on the radar screen now? I know you mentioned Battlefield as a number 3 on that tier. We talked a little bit about fighters, but because of Tom, you made it clear that Namco, Warner Brothers, those are looking strong for next year on the PS3 as a possibility. Again, nothing final. Anything we missed? Anything that you think, hey, you guys should take a look at? Because, for example, again, I don't know why I do this because I know I make enemies. Nazzle, not a big fan. They pick up Tribes Ascended. Maybe there's developers support there to decide to do that. But games like that, anything that's something we should take a look at. Say, hey, take a look at this. There's rumblings. Rumblings from the developers, rumblings from partners who would support a game on the circuit. Because we don't get those conversations. You do. Anything that we might be missing that we should keep an eye on?
Well, I think, you can Tribes. Wow, that's a blast from the past. So many levels. The challenge again is that if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. You got to support it. You got to have enough prize money. You got to have enough surface area. You got to have how do you work those things out? I mean, I think if NASL is going to continue with what's been discussed, then they've got Han and Tribes and they've got StarCraft, right? For an organization that doesn't have any sponsors, I don't see how you support that activity, right? I mean,
well, clearly, I think the developers have to support
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I
Because
think
look,
private investment, I should say.
I'm going to give you a little insight into the land of the developer, right? The developers don't have any cash, not Tribes, at least around Tribes. Maybe the publisher, maybe there's some marketing partnerships.
High Ref Studios, you're right, though. I'm not going to disagree with you too much.
Yeah, they're not going to, or what? They're going to put $100,000 into it.
Well, they didn't announce a prize pool, to be fair, so we don't know.
Right. So right, exactly. But $100,000 is a squirrel fart in what we do now. It doesn't carry much weight. So in terms
I have
of,
to use that as a technical term later, Sundance. Squirrel fart. I'll keep that in mind.
but don't get me wrong. If Tribes is the right game, if it's a solid title, if it's got a following, if it can carry some traction, great. The thing of it, what we find is we get a lot of people coming out of the woodwork now with new games. So take a look at these games, see what we've got, and that's awesome and great. But again, I can't just. We've seen what happens in the past when you add something that's not quite right. When something doesn't have a history, or people won't travel for it, people won't show up. So, I think we're gonna keep it simple to a certain extent. We're gonna see the things that work. Right, you're gonna see some of the big winners that you've already seen. And then you may see a few things sneak in there. Like you may see us do some one-offs and have some fun things that we do. But I don't think anybody's missing anything. You know the usual suspects, right? Blizzard makes a couple of games that look real good for next year. That's right, I said a couple. You got...
Wait, Blizzard makes a couple good games next year, like Diablo 3?
What?
I'm just asking.
I didn't say that. On the console side of things, you've got strong shooter options on the Xbox. You have Sony dedicated to doing something in the space and being flexible around the genre. You've got, an infinite almost list of possibilities on the PC side with more and more people developing titles that they believe are competitively viable. So I think that maybe some things that you haven't heard of that you see try out, but in terms of the big commitments, they're gonna be things you're familiar with.
Gotcha. Okay.
And to interrupt real quick, Sundance, I don't know if you saw this or people on the stream if you saw this, but eSports is actually trending worldwide on Twitter right now.
Number one, actually.
Well, there you go. So see, so
Number
right
one in
now,
the world and number 3 in the United States right now is esports, trending on Twitter.
Excellent. There you go.
That's
So
excellent.
JP McDaniel on State of the Game, that was his whole mission, and the Twitch guys supported it, and that's they're probably broadcasting now. I don't even know what time it is, but that was one of his little social experiments. And you know what? Here, I just want to say one thing. Right? That's great that we can do that. It really is. I'm not being a sarcastic prick about this. It's great that we can get esports trending. What's bad is, so what? It could be, you could put any other word in there. The question is, if everybody who took the time to actually throw that in there, if they actually were saying, you know what, that's a low hanging fruit thing, right? That's there's no real commitment, there's no real involvement. Doesn't mean
It's like the old saying, it's not about unique visitor, it's about conversion. What does it mean to convert
exactly.
that?
It's not even
right?
about uniques. It's about monetizing them.
Absolutely.
Right.
How do you convert it and then monetize it?
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm happy JP did this, but I'd be much happier if JP had 50,000 people watching his show. Right? So, but my point is that the same fire that was lit though by this little experiment, that same fire is something that we all need to kind of take on ourselves in terms of getting not the word out to the masses who don't want to be converted, but making sure we're presenting a community which is so amazing and so colorful that 14 and 15 and 16-year-old kids who are now just choosing what are the things that are going to be important to them for the rest of their lives are choose esports up there with everything else. That's the challenge, right? Anyway, and that's what I got.
No, I agree.
Yep.
And
I couldn't agree
by
more.
the way, Curt, before I forget, congratulations to winning against EG.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Looks like we are going head to head. Is that
Hold on
third
one
place,
second.
think?
I just want to point something else out just because, and yes, it is also about awareness. Zach just sent me, Meow just sent me, but here's some other things that are trending in the United States. If you want to date me, bad names for monster trucks, Tig Notaro, Golden Girls, Good Night Twitter.
You know what,
I'm
Sundance,
just saying.
though, I think you bring up the point, though, right? And I say this to my staff internally. We are still, and people can disagree with me, we're still at this, okay, 2-minute rant, Sundance, indulge me. You know what? I don't give a shit that EG may have purported between $750 and $2 million. I don't care. In the world I live with, that is peanuts. Trust me. And I'm quite sure whether you're at IPL or MLG, that is not a sustainable business, right? Think about all these people being paid and making a living. Just think about whatever the staff at MLG, whatever Sundance's overhead is for his staff and the office they rent and the supplies and what they do every day. Business costs money, people. I'm just going to say this. And we are still, in my humble opinion, the peanut stage. This is not the win. There is no ego. It's not about being known. It's much bigger than this. So as Sundance, what you just said, it really just always points to something that I think gets missed. You know what? It's great. It is great that we're on fucking Twitter. But if we can't monetize it, if we can't convert it to either people going to an event, watching a stream, spending money on products or teams or leagues gear, then we're not winning. We're not doing anything but being a hobby. And I think most anybody who's listening to this doesn't want this to be a hobby. Many people have career aspirations. Many people want to walk into this space. And I think it's important that people are reminded that it costs a lot of money to year over year sustain people's lives, right? What it takes to just hire one person at a salary for $40,000, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year. Now, just have a small company of a staff of 20, and let's say they all only make $40,000. You add payroll tax and everything else, that's $1 million a year just for those people. That doesn't include all the staff at events and everything else. When you start to look at those numbers, I think you start to have a real wake-up call. We are still in the infancy. And it always frustrates me that people believe that they've either won or they're known or they've got something good going on. This is the beginning. This is, in my 5 years, and Curt's been around a lot longer. In my 5 years, I never got excited because it was never enough for me. This is the first year I've seen something that points to the fact that we are actually on the right path. So I'll throw it back at you, Sundance, to comment, agree, disagree. Maybe I'm being a little too soapboxy, but I just don't see. This is the beginning, and I want people to really realize it's the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, if you really you dig into it, I mean, how many of the organizations or leagues or anybody, I mean, how many of them are generating meaningful revenue? I mean, we do, but we've been doing this for a long time and we've invested a lot of capital in it. I think the point of it is like it's not an industry until it supports itself, and right now it doesn't. And now, there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account there. Maybe there can only be 8 top players in certain games, and 4 teams in others. Look, that stuff is that stuff, and that stuff will sort itself out. But the reality of it is that there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm not saying that me, you, or anybody who's listening to this conversation is the right person to lead the charge, but we're all part of it. So while we're part of it, we better do our best to make sure that what we're building is going to be here long after we're done. Either we've moved on, or we've shuffled off this mortal coil. Whatever happens, there's a way to ensure that our time here is well spent. And to me, that's by building something that's going to stand the test of time. And so,
absolutely,
while I can appreciate a momentary victory around getting something trending worldwide, I mean, imagine if we actually put our attention towards something meaningful. Imagine if we all pulled in the same direction for an extended period of time around something bigger, and not just getting a word to trend for 10 seconds. It's the challenge. It's what we need to do.
At this point, I'm not going to add anything to what you just said because I think it's well said. I know other people have things they want to ask, and I have to turn that over. So, Curt, I'm going to go back to you to ask some questions because we have a couple more things, Sundance, we definitely want to cover before we call it a night. And I got to thank you for your time. So, Curt, I'm going to give it to you.
Awesome. First off, Sundance, I mean, you've been going now for how long? Has it been an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that? So,
I rant. Jerry knows that. I'm a loudmouth.
Well, no, I just appreciate you taking all the time. It's absolutely amazing. A lot of people wouldn't do it, and you definitely don't have to, but you do. So, and it's my first time having you on the show. I'm actually a fairly new addition to the show, and Jerry's talked great things about you, and I can definitely see why now. So, but yeah, I do have a few questions that I've sort of prepared that are mainly just questions I feel like I'm the only one that might need to know the answer, but I'm going to ask them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to start with CSGO because I know I saw you on Twitter. I tend to stalk it a little bit. I know people have asked you a few questions about CSGO, and your really only reply has been disappointed. That's the only reply that I know. Do you care to, explain that? Why exactly you might be disappointed with it? Have you actually looked at some of the PC beta footage or anything like that?
It's not. Look, okay. So the disappointed is it's not fair to folks such as yourself. And I forget sometimes I've got people who are looking at what I say and reading into it. And like I say, half of what I say is really calculated. The other half is just stupid. But I'm disappointed because I saw an opportunity for something which is arguably the most important competitive shooter in the history of what we do to get a level of support which could take advantage of the current climate, and it's not happening. The game itself, I think, is look, and not even to get into the whole what format or what platform they're pushing it for, because that's not important at the moment. But there wasn't the response that I'd hoped for, and it wasn't the. I'm not saying that it's not going to turn into something, but right now, it was disappointed with kind of what the reply from the powers that be was. However, I've talked to some people who've played it and who've had a very, very positive first impression. And then, in a little while, once we get a little bit deeper in, we'll see whether or not that's just people being in love because they're reunited with their baby that they haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, I mean, just as a small rant from a person who is not only in the beta but has had a fairly vast amount of experience with CS. It could potentially do a lot for the community and not only that, for MLG, for something like that to come back into a space. But I understand where you're coming from the developer standpoint. I understand that you're not seeing the kind of response you need. hopefully that changes.
Well,
I mean,
hopefully,
I'm
hopefully
hoping
the
that
Counter-Strike
that's
community, but Kurt, to be fair, hopefully the Counter-Strike community gets on Valve's ass and says, this is what we need you to do. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, Valve is only going to pivot if, and to be honest, it's just me. I'm not sure what Valve's long-term strategy here is because you've got the console port too. So, I'm not sure what direction they're going. But, I mean, I think definitely if you guys want to see it, you've got to push on the developers.
Yeah, I mean, and I hope that their response is just because the fact that, according to them at least, the actual release is quite a ways out. I mean, and from the way their timetable seemed to be, at least that's the way it seems to be, considering the beta was released with only one map and one game type. So, or one map and one, no dedicated servers or anything like that. So.
Fair enough. Hold on. Before I ask you next one, can I jump in with something?
Yeah, definitely.
Sundance, I keep forgetting, and thankfully people are reminding me. Locations next year. It always comes up. I know you have nothing signed, but if you can't tell me what you want to do next year, what was really good this year?
Anaheim West Coast event was a draw for the first time ever. That was huge.
Not to mention that's Activision Blizzard's backyard.
Yep. I think, well, that's sad. I just got flooded with messages saying, why are you hating on eSports trending? And I look to the right and I see it's not trending, and I want to write back, that's why, jackass. Anyway, so I think you'll see us do a lot more around, choosing very carefully. I think we'll be back in Raleigh, most likely. Providence did a ton of work for us. I don't know that I'd go back there in November. Anaheim, yes, for the reasons you listed. Dallas, I don't know, bad vibes. Orlando, always good, but weird in the Biodome. We've got some stuff to work through. Maybe a new city, maybe one we haven't been to, maybe a small city that's going to pay to bring us in. Maybe Chicago. Sorry, it's not going to happen, Jerry. But maybe
I know Chicago. Don't worry. I'm not.
Aw.
I'm thinking
the unions are just.
I look. Trust me. I saw the city's budget this year, and I was like, the changes aren't happening fast enough. So you're not insulting me. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great city. It's not cost effective for you.
The good news is that Anaheim worked. The other thing is you may see us involved in some other large scale events that aren't necessarily ours. But that so maybe we're out there on the road executing with other partners around some big initiatives they have in the live event space. But we'll get that stuff out soon. We're finalizing our initial list this week.
When you say big partners, do you mean esports or outside of esports?
Both.
Wow, aren't you getting around?
Yeah. Well, all right. I'll give you this one, Jerry. You know who Live Nation is?
Yeah, one might argue, yeah.
Yeah, you can do some research and you could just look at how many venues they own. And
I appreciate the fact you do that, though. I really do. Like, you know what I do, and you give me the information so I can do these things. I really do appreciate it. I want you to know that.
Well,
I do. Thank you.
And then I get in trouble, but it's okay.
Yeah, but hopefully some people, though, they don't get it right away. I'm hoping it buys you a little bit of time.
By the way, bad names for monster trucks is still trending. I just want to point that out.
Though,
but esports isn't.
Your point is well taken, and I think people really need to understand that. Actually, it's like that whole argument: players want to get known. I hate to tell you, known is not the answer, right? Yeah. That's not what counts at the end. That's not what pays people's bills. Curt, did you have something else though before I keep going?
Of course I do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but are we still going to talk about Counter-Strike though? That horse is dead.
That horse is not dead. Number one.
DED dead.
Not a chance. All right, but no. I mean, I do have one other thing to mention about Counter-Strike though, and that is I understand where you're coming from. Hopefully, over the course of the beta, you can talk to people like Dunn, who are, like I said, are casting a ton of show matches and a ton of pub matches, and get his opinions on it. So,
yeah.
So anyway, my last question for you, for me personally though, is I guess as someone from the old school, not going to say the scene again. But my heart aches for, what I call a long-lost friend. I think you know what that long-lost friend is. It starts with a G, ends with a frag. Any comments? Anything at all? Any hopes of glimpse of hope?
There was a plan in place that's now been shifted a little bit. And
I mean, CS:GO. You say what you want with it about the pro circuit, but
Look, he's not bringing back
it's
God
still-
Frag next week. You're
it's
just gonna have to
still
accept
gonna
that.
have
Yeah.
it's still gonna have a community. So,
yeah, no. Believe me, believe me, I know. And you should bug Lee Chen. Let's put it on Lee. Lee will be in the office tomorrow. Send him a message on Twitter. Ask him to figure it out.
You're so mean. Hey, Jason,
he loved it.
When
He loved
you
it.
were in Orlando and you sat in that meeting, Jason, do you remember that?
I do. Wow, I actually get to talk. Wait a second. What's going on here?
Oh no, come on. No. You could have had ample opportunity to tell us.
No, I'm just kidding
Did
with
he
you.
ask us to come on to Twitch, to come on MLG TV?
Yeah, actually, that did come up, and I actually did send him an email, so I think I got to prod you about this, Sundance. Is there anything that we can hear about that? Is there any chance that we might be able to do something like that in the future?
Sure.
Put him on the spot. Nice to put him on the spot. He didn't even know Lee's like, to come tomorrow, he's going to be like, when did you tell the losers bracket they could be on MLG TV? And Lee will be like, it was free food and I drank.
Yeah, exactly. Sure thing. Yeah, totally.
I love
We're
it.
no rush, trust me. Okay.
that was almost as much
That was
of
the
a
sound of what
question as
happens
my
when
Godfrag
you,
question. So,
That's the sound of when one of your people tells somebody something outside the company that you're like, thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, I did not realize that.
Thanks. Thank you.
That's what I was trying to hint before when, if he didn't respond back quickly, it's because Sundance doesn't know about it, and that hasn't been broken yet. So, yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is young players trying to do the right thing to help grow esports. And, wow. I don't know if I should say this. I'll be honest with you, Sundance, and I don't want you to comment. I do not want you to comment. I just don't see Halo's future. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But Halo players are asking, what can we do? What can we do? And that's really the question we get all the time. What can we do as players to make a difference? And I think that question, and then everybody draws the comparison to StarCraft. And they say, well, you got to do like StarCraft does. And I always think, well, you're setting yourself up for a little bit of failure with a game that's been around as long as StarCraft has, with a developer like Blizzard behind it. And I'm almost asking you to kind of paint the landscape. Like, hey, there's value in those games that are not quite StarCraft and what Blizzard does. Obviously, they're on the circuit, they draw a crowd, and the developers support it. But we ask this a lot, and the answer may not change. But what could players do? What are some of the keys that you believe help? Is it more now about pressure on the developer? Is that number one? Is it because I hear a lot about conduct, and sometimes, to be honest with you, I don't think it's as much about conduct now as it is about the business end of it because of where we're at. But feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong.
No, I think it's. I hate to. Nobody wants to feel powerless, but they're powerless. It's either the folks in charge who control the purse strings want to invest in this, or they don't. Because we've learned that we no longer can, meaning MLG. Like we're no longer going to foot the bill on our own. That does not mean that we're not going to do everything we can to try and make it work, but they know what the community's point of view is. They know the community loves it, the community likes it. It's whether or not they see real upside and value in investing their dollars in the space. In the case of our initial conversations with 343, they have indicated that they do. That doesn't mean it's going to happen in time or in the way that everybody wants. But again, for everybody who says, oh, how can you turn your back on Halo, or how can you turn your back on any of the games you've ever left behind? I've put millions of dollars into Halo, into the Halo space, right? Like I've invested fortune, enough money for people, a family of four, to live comfortably for their entire lives into that game, because I saw the potential, and I still see the potential. But the reality, what changed is that I can no longer do it alone. And I'm not saying I'm just asking the community, because the community's done a lot, but the community's also gotten distracted by other bright, shiny objects. A lot of them, at least.
What do you mean by that, though? Seriously.
I mean, well, people have moved over to Call of Duty or to StarCraft or whatever else they moved, or Counter-Strike Go or Battlefield. There was a time when if you played a shooter, you played Halo, and we saw with Reach a
On the
lot of
console.
people on the console. Yes, still not
Because the
the
Counter-Strike
best.
community will yell at you for that. So just make sure we
Counter-Strike,
clarify that.
the
I
history.
will yell at you for that. What are you talking about?
Look, I'll even go so far as to say that Quake is if I were to say it, I'm like, if I could make magic, I'd love to run Quake on the PC just because it's
Don't
1v1.
play Kate Slasher, please.
No, he's not. He's not part of the equation, but just because it's 1v1, and it's fast paced. So the thing about it is that folks got distracted because other titles came into the space. Like I said, it's number 7, right? And you've got several shooters in front of it right now on Xbox Live, right? Which is the only fair comparison because it's unique to that platform. I don't know. Will Halo 4 resuscitate it? It might. But every release we've had has added new challenges to the fold, right? Halo 2, I would say, was the one that the payout, the exchange was worth it because you got Xbox Live support. Since then, it's kind of been downhill.
And here's sort of my question regarding that was, I don't, 10 times more about me than this stuff, but regarding to developer support for things, are you talking, I mean, I know you're talking partially monetarily, right? I mean, because you're saying you're no longer footing the bill, but you're also talking about things like Epic is doing, which is, actually changing parts of the game to better work with MLG. Like, for instance, the spectating system that they just added, which is absolutely amazing. But my question is, when did that become a necessary commodity? When did that become? Was it partially because of Riot? Is Riot someone that has sort of sparked that as well because they're known for putting a lot of money into it? For instance, the Counter-Strike community never had support from anything. From
Right,
Valve, really.
And yet everybody's hoping suddenly Valve does support it. What it is that, I'll be honest with you, without any help, right, through sheer brute force and kind of through what Blizzard has done, people have seen success. And yes, Riot jumped on that, but look, I'll be honest with you, Riot's game is a huge pain in the ass to operate as a tournament provider. It's getting better, and they're solving some things, but they've kind of slipped into this stuff. So, but the entity which really put the real time in and really thought about it, you see what the response has been from the community. It's a huge following, right? The huge uptick in terms of engagement and viewership. So, I mean, it is what it is. The other side of it is that I'm at a point now where I can say, look, I'm not doing it on my own anymore. Either you give me the tools I need, or else I'm going in the other direction. That's it.
So, Nance, I want to jump in with something that I think people need to be reminded of. And recently, I was accused by somebody of being too friendly with you, and I don't know if I'm too friendly with anyone who knows me. Excellence is important to me. And fairness, I guess I have almost a sense of justice to a fault. You have been subsidizing players playing video games for a long time. That's not a lie. I just want everybody who listens to this to know this. That means you've been paying for people to have a shot to make a lot of money, and at a loss to you, more importantly, your investors. That's fair, correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And now, with the growth and where you're at, you have a responsibility to those investors to start to not take a loss anymore and start to make the tough decisions that will make the company profitable and return those investors their investment. Is that fair as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, otherwise, this isn't playtime. This is a business.
So at the end of the day, those who critique you for being a business, it's a duh. He is a business. They are a business. They have investors. But two, more importantly, it is time for those publishers to also become partners and help subsidize those games. And that is a very important part of your model moving forward. Is that correct?
Yep. I think that's a safe statement to make.
So to those of you out there who have a game that you love and you want to see it on the MLG Pro Circuit, you have to understand that the developer, whoever that may be, has to be an integral partner in this for this to work. It cannot happen without the developer. And the developer, as far as we've seen over the several years, listens to the community. You are the ones who buy their games. So if you want to impact the ability of a game to be taken to Major League Gaming Pro Circuit and be played at the highest level, so on a given day we can find out who the best player is that day, then you need to tell the developer to reach out to Major League Gaming and that they're going to need to put up some dollars in a partnership with MLG in order to run these events. Is that all fair, Sundance?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think, look, the reality is that we've got people now, I'm not going to use the phrase lining up, but we have people coming to us and saying, we value what you do, we want to subsidize it, we want to support it, and we're going to work with those people. But not at the case of saying, and not to make a profit from them either. I want to be clear. Things like prize money, execution costs, keys around how we build our tournaments, those things, and even on the content distribution side of things. It's not, like I said, I'd love to be have limitless pockets and just throw money in a hole and say, because I love these things. Everything we do from here on out under my tenure is going to be based on whether or not it's a sink or swim profitability exchange, meaning you give it a try. If it sinks, you cut bait. If it swims, you keep it and you invest more. I've shown it this year, and I'm going to continue to show it.
Very much that fail fast, and if it's working, keep investing in it, correct?
Correct.
One final question, and then I'm going to let you go and wrap it up. You, sir, have come back into running a company from a time when you had a back seat. You're, in relative terms, a recent new father. I'm sure, hopefully, the family's supportive. A little bit on the personal side, Sundance. How are you doing, sir, as a person? How is life treating you? How are all things? Because let's face facts, now's a time that I think few people can understand what it's like to be in your role and the time commitment and the travel and the things you have going on. So for those who one day say, I wonder what it's like to be Sundance or what it's like to run a league or, more importantly, be an entrepreneur or do the things you do. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm spread too thin. My family complains that I'm not home enough, and they have every right to because it's correct. I'm here still, which means I'm still committed to it. But I think there's a time in the future when you guys are going to have to exist without me. Probably primarily for my health, because I don't think I can continue doing this way. Although I'm healthy, don't worry, I'm not. Although I just got over pneumonia. But the point of it is that I set out to do something, and I've taken it over, and I'm going to get it to the place that I can, and then we'll see. I'm not saying I'm going to sell tomorrow because I think it's too early, and I don't want to hand it over the keys to anybody at the moment. But I'm good. I mean, look, I think the big thing for me is on the day today when we had great news to share with everybody. That's fantastic. But I'm not celebrating those numbers. I'm looking at them and finding the things that we can improve upon and the things that we can do better next year. I'm celebrating the fact that what we have is amazing every day. I mean, I numbers don't tell me that. The people do. The events do. The competition does. Being able to enjoy it and see the joy that we give to millions and millions of people. And if I wake up tomorrow and I don't feel that way, you'll all know it because I will very publicly tell everybody. So long and thanks for everything. But for now, you're stuck with me. So forgive me for being, a bit of a dolt at times, but I'm doing the best I can. And if you have any suggestions, I always listen.
And that, sir, is why probably they've been as successful as you have this year. You have listened. And judging by what you have planned for next year, for making sure that spectators can get a better experience, that players are given 4 very focused events and a lot of other weeks to be involved. I think it's going to be a very exciting year. It sounds to me like you're going to go head-to-head with any competition you have and absolutely prove that you are the premier eSports league in the world. And I think all those things add together for a very exciting and, to be honest, just I think I said this to you earlier today, but when I saw the numbers from the MLG, I thought finally, not finally you've arrived, but finally there's the movement, there's the bump, there's the indicator that all this matters for something. And I was just really happy to hear about the success. So, again, congratulations. I think it's been many years, and many people don't realize how many years you've been working at this with pressures that, to be fair, most of us can't imagine. And I think sometimes when you're at the top, you're always wearing thick armor and you can handle it all. But I do think sometimes you need to be reminded that you've done a good job. And I think this year Sundance, you, sir, have done a very good job. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But again, I mean, I choose these pressures. I'm not, raising a family trying to figure out where I'm going to get money to feed them or anything. I mean, we don't need to get into that conversation. But I'm not putting myself on a cross. I don't think this is all, I do this because I love it. And I've made a lot of amazing relationships through this, and will continue to do so. And I think, there's room for a lot of exploration and development and progress and growth next year, and I'm looking forward to it as much as everybody else is. And and thank you guys for putting up with me for this long on the show, and to everybody who's listened. I'm here working for you and with you, and it's an honor. So thanks, everybody.
Sundance, I haven't had the chance to talk too much this episode because, of course, I've been, handling the Twitter and talking with people in the chat and getting people out there to know that you were here on the show so they could come listen into what you had to say. But I think 225% year-over-year growth for the number of visitors to MLG.com is word in of itself. I think it speaks for itself. So thank you so much for the job you do, and thank you so much for spending the 2 hours that you did with us tonight, because I think that we all learned a lot, and we're all going to grow together now as esports continues to grow. Maybe we can get it trending more often, make it so that it actually lasts in the future. But yet again, thank you so much for spending your time with us here tonight. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Take care, Sundance.
Bye.
Oh my God, that was so wonderful to listen to. While I would love to have been able to ask more questions and jump in and things like that, I had such a good time just sitting back, listening, talking with people in the chat, and just enjoying that, because I
was just going to jump in and say, I think a lot of people know that you control every image on the stream and you're talking in chat, and we all have to work as a team, and I'm the leader and the oldest, so I naturally do monopolize the conversation, but let it be clear that every image you see on the stream and a lot of the interaction in chat that Christian and Paradise take care of, and that frees up Curt and I to do a lot of the question asking, and Curt's got a unique perspective that's critical. So I was just really happy with the team, but it is always a pleasure to talk to him, and I'm gonna recap real quick my bets. I think if you're a Halo fan, you're in deep trouble. I'm just gonna say that right now. I think Halo's dead. I really do. I think Call of Duty's solid. I think Gears is solid. I think we're gonna see StarCraft obviously dominate the PC. I think we're going to see League of Legends having some space. What that looks like will depend on Riot and a couple other things. I think Xbox 360 is going to be Call of Duty, and it's going to be Gears of War. And I think the PlayStation 3 is going to have Mortal Kombat. And I guess he did say Namco a few times, right?
He did.
That's pointing, I don't know. Are we talking Tekken then?
It's maybe is Tekken versus Street Fighter a possibility? Who knows?
That might be it right there. Maybe that is it. Tekken versus Street Fighter.
Isn't that a Capcom game?
Oh, anyone?
Capcom
Yes.
game.
It probably is.
It's a 2D game. So it's a Capcom game.
You know what? Tekken Hybrid did just come out too, though. I mean, that's a possibility.
I'm hoping Tekken Tag Tournament 2. That's what I.
Wait. I heard somebody who hasn't spoken yet tonight. I think I heard Mr. Esoteric.
Oh my God!
I wanted to hop in and say that Street Fighter Cross Tekken is completely handled by Capcom.
I completely forgot you were even here, Kevin. I apologize, but I did.
Why are you so mean?
Kevin, my boy, backing me up. Yeah.
I got you, Curt.
But yeah, so as far as I understand, that's Capcom. They do have Tekken Tag Tournament 2 coming out, so that will be very interesting. Tekken 6, I don't think so. It's kind of, I mean, I love Tekken 6. Tekken 6, believe it or not, is my favorite game to watch for fighting games. I just don't like the 2D games that much. It's not my thing. I love some of the 3D games, and I think I think they're 10 times harder, to be honest. And it's really interesting to watch. But I don't know. You never can tell with Sundance. I mean, to be honest. I mean, up until like 3 weeks before the announcement of MLG 2011 season, everyone thought Tekken was good to go.
Well, I'm just going to say that at the end of the day, if I were betting, right, I'm just telling you, Halo's dead, Call of Duty, Gears of War on the 360, and I'm going to go with Mortal Kombat 9 and Soul Calibur on the PlayStation 3. That's what I'm calling.
Ooh, that's
Wow.
I'm calling it. We'll see
Weird.
if I'm right, but I mean, I think we might
weird.
as well, right? We
I
picked the
do
guy's
wanna know.
brain. We all got some input. I think Valve, either unless Valve does a sort of dramatic turnaround.
Fortunately, Valve will be the death of an amazing game.
You're talking about Counter-Strike Go or Dota 2?
Counter-Strike Go and Dota 2. Shit.
Shit.
They're going to turn around and support Dota 2, with the money. Yeah, let's throw some money at MLG for Dota 2. Hell no. No, people need to get over the fact, that everybody thinks that Dota 2 is going to be the next big thing. Sorry, for MLG, it's not happening. For IPL, it's not happening. So
I should have asked him if he wanted to have us run a guild for him for Star Wars: The Old Republic.
I do want to give a shout out to the Call of Duty community though, because I'm telling, and the Halo community for that matter, but especially the Call of Duty community for showing up in the chat when he announced that Call of Duty 2. I mean, Call of Duty 2. Dear God, Call of Duty was good. Was as for right now at least good to go for next season. People flipped out. People absolutely flipped out in the chat, and it's amazing that you guys show up like that. So, and
Yep.
I'm pretty excited for it, to be honest. I mean,
I will say this right here, though, and I just want to say this. Something I talked to somebody else about who will go unmentioned, but let's just say like a Check 6 or a VVV, they're a respected character in the field. And when I first started in 2007, as a matter of survival, I picked up a lot of Gears teams. And over time, I've changed my position to have only one team in a game. And where we are positioned now, if you have multiple teams in a game, this goes out to, I guess it's true, an Optic or a Quantic. Maybe it's time to give up the team you don't want. Let a VVV or a Check 6 or other organizations pick up another team for the competitive reasons. I just want you guys to consider that. I would love to have a Call of Duty team, but at the same time, there are 3 Quantic teams and there are 2 Optic teams, and that's 5 of the top 8 teams. And what it does inadvertently is it makes my community, my sponsor, not involved in Call of Duty. And I don't know if that's good, because I'm not afraid of Quantic. I'm not afraid of Check 6. I'm not even afraid of EG. I'm not afraid of anybody. I mean, I think I've carved my space out in this industry and VVV and our staff and what we've done. And I think everybody I mentioned has. We may disagree about things, but we're here. We're doing things. I just think in the Call of Duty community, you guys are making the same mistake I did in Gears of War. I did build my name on it, but looking back, I should have only supported one team. And I think all of you guys should do the same thing. So I just want you to consider that. I realize now something that Curt's people, the EGs and the complexities and the fanatics and the SK Gamings probably figured out, and it took me a while, is that you need to support a team and back it. And that's really the right thing to do. And I don't know if a formal trade-off is necessary at some point where we take a team and we build a relationship with them and then we make sure that they have the same deal or whatever it takes. But if we're going to grow esports, I think we should consider those things. I really do. And we all have to work. And I mean the EG, the complexity, and I'll focus on North America, the Quantic, the Check 6, and anyone else, Optic, Eon, sorry. We need to work together. Well, because our fans, our community, the people that like us, they need to have teams to cheer. And in order for that to work really well, we have to be sure that we leave enough room for other people to get involved. So my advice, and I wouldn't ask this if I didn't believe it was in the best interest of everyone, and it's not that there aren't other Call of Duty teams that VVV Gaming can pick up. Remember, I am VVV. We are VVV Gaming. We never support the number one player. That's not our model. We don't pick up the top players. It's not what we do. We pick up players, we develop them, we grow them, and we've done it in every game. And I think we're in the unique position to ask this. Just think about it. If you've got multiple teams in the top 8, you might inadvertently be hurting the growth of the games you support because you're not letting other organizations come in, create those rivalries. Because I think we can all agree, whether you end up number 1 or number 2 or number 3 or number 4, that's not going to change anything at the end of the day. What counts is that you're there. That's my thought. So, Curt, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolutely amazing sort of show. I think we got a lot of answers from Sundance. Some I didn't like, some I did like. I do love the fact that we're going to see Halo. I mean, not Halo. We're going to see Call of Duty back, more than likely, and the fact that we're going to be actually able to hear the commentators. I'm hoping. Here's my only problem: the games that are, prospected to be on the circuit. I'm just hoping that they are games that could actually grow an audience, not just sustain the audience they have, but actually grow their audience, whether that be through the casters, whether that be through the game, whatever. And it's not just on there because it's the easiest thing to do. That's my only sort of gripe, is I'm hoping that we don't have certain games that in the end are not going to succeed. And then we got to go back to the drawing board again and start with another game next season, and then more games next season. And then it just keeps on changing and funneling out a completely different series to where they hopefully find one day that is actually giving them money and giving them support and is also a competitive title and a lot of people like it. That's my only thing. But I love the news about Call of Duty. I love the news about StarCraft, and we're going to see that shift and sort of change up. The best news of the night for me was when he said that the open bracket is still around. There was a big rumor going around that was being taken out, that it was just going to be qualification only, and a certain amount of players were going to go to the final event. I think that's an awful model, so I'm really glad to see the open bracket back. And I am disappointed that Godfrag's not going to be coming back anytime soon, despite hearing that, it was.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Hey, look, dude, you have your LOL boards or whatever you have. Give me mine, okay? Oh, no, I'm sorry. You don't have LOL boards.
You know what? If Jason complained as much about rhythm games as you complain about Call of Duty, holy shit.
You know what? I know. I know.
Rhythm games left the kind of mark that Counter-Strike did.
Hold on. You know what? I know. I can actually admit when my game is dead. Okay, Curt?
Look, my game still brought 30,000 people.
Aren't we supposed to be winding down the show now? Starting another debate.
I just lit a fire under his ass, didn't I? I apologize.
It's not true. That's the thing. It's not true. When Guitar Hero gets 30,000 people on that stream, I will be more than happy to admit your game's not dead.
Oh, God.
All right, well, let's wrap this up, Jason. Let's end the show.
First things first, I got to say what I'm thankful for real quick. I'm really thankful for everyone that's tuned in tonight. Even right now, we have over 300 viewers still on the stream. So, you know what? Kudos to everyone that has tuned in and listened. Thank you all so much. I mean, honestly, we really do appreciate it because this is what's going to continue to grow esports, and we do this for you guys. So thank you very, very much. It means a lot to us, and we're going to continue to do our part and continue to get better as well. We have a lot of really cool things planned for the Losers Bracket in the coming year, and next week is our last episode of the year, and we'll be coming back in early January to start back up for 2012, and we've got a lot of things planned, so please continue to tune in, listen to the show. We're live every Tuesday night normally, so follow us on Twitter at Losers Bracket for all the latest information, and let me give out the random, the normal spiel, I guess you could say. Big big thank you to VV Gaming sponsors, SteelSeries, Gamer Grub, Control Freak, and also big thank you to the band Power Glove. They support they supply all the music, and they support us for, every week. We get a different song playing, and we got the intro music, the X-Men theme they do, and the outro music. And they're just great to us, so thank you to Power Glove. Big thank you to the entire esports community, including VV Gaming, Check 6, EG, everyone. Thank you all so much. Your feedback, support, it's what keeps us going. Be sure to stop by our podcast homepage. The website is vvgaming.podbean.com. You can find all our episodes there. You can also email us any feedback you have. It's just the losers bracket at vvv-gaming.com. It's VVV Gaming on Facebook, at losers bracket on Twitter. Get at us any way you can. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And once again, thank you for taking the last 3 hours of your life and spending it here with us. We've had 2 great guests tonight, and I'm so happy that you could share that time with us. So thank you very much. Let's get some shout-outs going before we end the show. Let's start out with Kevin, since he's been the quiet one tonight. Kevin, any shout-outs before we head out?
Okay, as always, I want to thank the VV Gaming, the community, all its sponsors. I also want to give big shout-outs to our Mortal Kombat division. They placed very well at NEC 12 in Philadelphia this weekend. We were able to get 2nd, 3rd, and 9th place, so big shout-outs to them, and a big congratulations.
Hooah!
All right. Well, once again, thanks to the losers bracket for allowing me to be on the show. It's really amazing to get to talk to Sundance and hear his sort of, direct answers to some questions that I think not only me but a lot of people have been wondering. So, thanks to everybody at Check 6 as usual. And yeah, that's about it. And before I do that, just like I did before, please shout out to the Halo community as well. I know you guys didn't have the best of news for this podcast, but I want you guys to keep on working because I think Nexi was right in the video. I think you guys have style that no one else does, and I think despite the bad news, I am definitely thinking you guys can come back from it, hopefully.
You know what?
Keep on.
Curt is totally right. And in fact, I want to say one more thing on this before we head out. I actually just received a tweet to the Losers Bracket account less than 10 minutes ago that someone had said, someone by the name of GDog182 said, pretty sad to see the weak belief in Halo from the Losers Bracket, but Halo is more alive than they realize. Let's prove them wrong next season. Honestly, that's good. Prove us wrong. We would love to see it. I mean, we're not dogging on Halo.
And to be fair, I'm the one who said, right, that I think Halo might be dead. So blame me. Please blame me. I'm just reading the business. This is a purely
You're quick to call a game dead anyway, so no one pays attention
You're
to you.
quick
Remember?
to say that a game is still alive, Curt.
I'm just saying.
You called Counter-Strike dead, like 5 years ago. So come on.
Did not call it dead. I said you didn't have to support it, and then it died. Probably because I didn't support it. Bizzing! But anyway, I'm just saying that I think it's really tough. I mean, unless 343 does something amazing. And look, okay, you think I might be crazy here, but here's the truth, right? Microsoft has made it clear. You heard it from Sundance that Microsoft, the hardware, has told us to focus on a different game. Okay, you want to know what game that is? It's Call of Motherfucking Duty, right? That's the game they want them to focus on, just so you know, right? So there's one partner in the favor of Call of Duty, not Halo. 2, 343 Studios. No offense, they don't have deep pockets, right? They don't have a lot of money. So where the fuck is that support going to come from? So I'm giving you guys the cold, honest business decision analysis. So do not blame the losers bracket for dissing Halo. There is many, many people here who love Halo, who love the game. I've got a community full of people who love Halo. But I'm telling you, if I were making an analysis and somebody said, Jerry, you have to tell me what's going to be on the circuit next year, I told you I don't think it's going to be Halo. Do I hope I'm wrong? Of course. Halo's been a staple and something we've been around since we've been in existence. I see nothing wrong with having Halo. Nothing. But, as Nexi admitted, the game is boring to watch. It's repetitive. Halo Reach, that is. And things have to change, and the developer has to support it, and the road that Halo has to climb is steeper than the road that other games have to climb. So, I hate to be the bringer of bad news, But like Sundance says, he believes the communities are powerless in this case. So Halo, if you want your game on the circuit, you need to make sure 343 gets it. If they don't get it, this game is dead on arrival. Christian, you're up next.
How do I follow that up? Like, really? But anyways, I'll go ahead and give out my shout-outs. Of course, a big thanks to Mr. DiGiovanni. Amazing, amazing show with him tonight. 3.5 hours. Wow, where has the time gone? I definitely want to give a big shout-out to our regular viewers, of course. Biscuit, Glory D Arcane, Galaxy, Glockburst, all you guys. You guys make the chat so interesting to watch and discuss during the show. You guys are absolutely amazing. Couldn't be here without you. Wouldn't be here without you. You guys are amazing. Again, a big thanks to VVV Gaming for allowing me to do what I do every week here on the Losers Bracket. And a big thank you to Mr. Prohaska, Jason, Curt, Kevin. You guys are amazing to sit down and talk with every week. You guys are awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And Jerry, do you have any last actual shout-outs for the evening?
I do agree with Jason and Curt on this, to the Halo community. I really, trust me, somebody's got to tell the patient they have cancer. You have cancer. And I'm sorry I have to give you that diagnosis. But I want you to be realistic that you have real challenges ahead of you. To the Call of Duty community, you're lucky. You're lucky. You're lucky. You're lucky that Activision is willing to support their game and that they have the pockets to do so. I hope people like Golden Boy continue to do what he's doing, and I hope they capitalize it. And if I were a Call of Duty fan, the fact that Major League Gaming is willing to put the teams in a space so that audiences can hear the caster, Golden Boy, you may just have been at the right moment in the right point in history, and I think that's fantastic. To the Gears of War community, you're equally lucky. To the people at Hype Fest Station, you're on the radar screen. That's good. Continue to do what you're doing. To the top Gears players, continue to do what you're doing. All there seems to be good. To StarCraft, you're king of the hill. You are eSports in many ways, and that's good. You don't have a lot to worry about.
Don't stroke them, please. Oh.
Your place here is secure. Ty PL, man, I really hope it works out okay. I really do. But more importantly, above everything else, I think Sundance said something tonight that I don't want to be missed, and that is about not being here forever. I'm sure Sundance will not be that of MLG forever. I'm sure that Sir Scoots will not lead EG forever. I'm sure that there'll be change everywhere. There always is. Most of us are in this business to build a brand that outlives us, and then we pass it on to somebody else to do great things with. So it's got to be across the board. So make sure, whatever community you're in and whatever you're doing, just don't forget how important it is to pass on what you know to others. Thank you all for listening. I'm always honored by the turnout we get, and I want to give a shout out to Hal Halpin at ECA, to Mark from Quantic Gaming, CG Freedom. So many of you have been very supportive on Twitter to get us to be on MLG TV. It really was an odd thing that came up. And to be fair, I'm not even sure I want to go to MLG TV. We enjoy where we're at and our space. But if going to MLG TV helps esports, I will not hesitate in doing that. So yeah, I want to thank you all, and I really deeply appreciate it. I do.
I don't even know how I follow that either, but at the same time, I guess I can try. Thank you so much to everyone yet again that tuned in tonight. And hey, we're going to continue doing this for you. Like we've said, thank you so much to Sundance, to Tom at the beginning of the show. I mean, that was a great interview as well. I hate to overlook that because we did have Sundance on the show. So yet again, thank you to @ProTomCannon. Follow him on Twitter. He, of course, runs StoryUkin.com and does the EVO tournament. So yet again, big thanks there. And hey, we've got one more show planned for you this year. So tune back in next Tuesday night, and we will see you then. Until then, this is the Losers Bracket signing off for round 95, our longest show to date. Thank you yet again for tuning in and listening through this entire 3-hour-long episode. We will see you back here next Tuesday night. Until then, guys, take care. Have a great night.